Tammy Fuller put the house papers in front of Kelsey and the warehouse papers in front of Mia. She did it at Dawn's dining table, 6 days after the funeral, while Dawn's coffee cup still sat beside the sink. Nobody had moved it. Kelsey had already put a yellow note on the bottom that said, "Keep with house." Mia noticed because she had used that cup the morning Dawn went to the hospital. Tammy settled into the chair at the head of the table. At 68, she had her mother's narrow hands, but none of her patience. She lined up 3 pens beside a folder and checked the time on her phone. "This doesn't need to be difficult," she said. "Your grandmother was very clear." Kelsey opened the first document. She was 35, 6 years older than Mia, and had always read important papers with her mouth slightly open. The habit made her look surprised even when she already knew what they said. "The house comes to me outright?" she asked. "That's what it says." Kelsey lowered her eyes again, but Mia saw the relief move through her shoulders. The comfortable brick house stood on a quiet street in Murfreesboro, with 2 bedrooms downstairs, polished hardwood floors, and a kitchen. Dawn had remodeled less than 5 years earlier. The mortgage had been paid off long ago. Even the roof was fairly new. Kelsey had spent most of the week talking about the house, as if she were accepting a responsibility nobody else wanted. She had discussed insurance, property taxes, and whether the upstairs carpet should be replaced. She'd also measured the dining room windows before the funeral flowers had wilted. Mia looked at the thinner set of papers in front of her. The first page carried an address, 214 Depot Road. Under it was a plain description of a brick warehouse and the narrow parcel beneath it. Dawn had called it the Fuller Costume Warehouse in her will, though Mia had never heard her use that name while she was alive. Mia read the description twice. "What exactly is in there?" she asked. Tammy pressed her lips together. "Nothing you can use? That wasn't my question. It's an old storage building." "Storage for what?" Kelsey turned a page without looking up. "Mia, Aunt Tammy's trying to get through this." Mia looked across the table at her sister. "And I'm trying to understand what Grandma left me." The room went quiet. The refrigerator motor started behind them. On the counter, a paper bag held 3 sympathy casseroles nobody wanted to eat. Dawn had hated casseroles. She called them food people brought when they didn't know what else to do. Tammy pulled a property sheet from her folder. "The county has it assessed at $34,000, she said. "That doesn't mean anyone would pay that. The roof line needs attention. There are vines all over the west wall, and the freight door hasn't been opened since 1978. Mia looked up. "You're serious?" "Yes, not once. Not that I know of." And Grandma owned it that whole time. She owned a lot of things over the years. "That's nearly 50 years. 48, Kelsey said. She finally glanced at Mia. "It's been locked for 48 years. There was a little disbelief in her voice, but there was amusement too. Mia knew that sound. Kelsey used it when Mia bought a used car, took a temporary job, or tried to repair something instead of replacing it. It meant Mia had once again wandered into the part of life where sensible people didn't follow. Tammy pushed another sheet across the table. "This is the current estimate for basic cleanup and exterior work." A contractor had listed masonry repair, roof flashing, drainage, vegetation removal, and inspection costs. The numbers were rough, but every line pointed in the same direction. Mia felt heat climb into her face. "You already got an estimate?" "I had to understand what the estate was dealing with, but it's being left to me. That's why you need to understand it." Kelsey leaned back. "It's a liability, Mia." There it was. Not a gift, not a place, not something Dawn had kept for a reason. A liability. Mia turned to the next page. Dawn's language was simple. She left the Depot Road property, the warehouse, and its contents to Mia. The phrase looked ordinary enough. Mia put one finger under it and read it again. The warehouse and its contents. Below that was a separate document Tammy wanted her to sign. It acknowledged the transfer and released any claim Mia might have against what remained in the estate. Mia stopped reading. "What's this part?" Tammy reached for the page, then seemed to think better of it. "A family settlement and release. It keeps probate clean. Clean for who? For everyone. Kelsey has to sign one?" Kelsey's face changed before Tammy answered. "The situations aren't the same," Tammy said. "Why not?" "Kelsey is receiving the house under a separate clause. So am I." "Yes, but there may be expenses attached to the warehouse. There could be code issues. There could be environmental cleanup. We don't know." Mia stared at the signature line. Then, why do you need me to release the rest? Tammy gave a tired breath. She had expected hurt, perhaps, but not questions. Grief had exhausted her, and she wanted the estate reduced to a list she could finish. The house went one way. The warehouse went another. The remaining bills got paid, the remaining property got distributed, and nobody called her every morning. It protects the closing, Tammy said. If the warehouse costs more than it's worth, you can't come back later and say the division was unfair. Was it fair? Mia, Kelsey said. What? Don't do this. Do what? Turn it into a fight because you don't like what Grandma decided. Mia looked at her sister for a long moment. You knew before today. Kelsey glanced at Tammy. That was enough. How long? Only since last week, Kelsey said. Before the funeral, we had practical things to discuss. Like your refinance? Kelsey shut the folder. That has nothing to do with you. It did, though not in the way Kelsey feared. She had been renting a townhouse outside Nashville and complaining about the payments for 2 years. Dawn's house gave her an answer. Once the title was clear, Kelsey could borrow against it, pay off other debt, and still call herself careful. Mia didn't begrudge her the house. That was the strange part. She could picture Kelsey living there. She could picture her replacing Dawn's curtains and moving the good dishes to a higher cabinet. What hurt was learning that everyone else had already stood in the future, while Mia was still bringing clean clothes to the hospital. Tammy folded her hands. Your grandmother made different choices for each of you. Did she tell you why? No. Did she ever talk about the warehouse? Not in any useful way. What's that supposed to mean? It means she paid the tax bill and wouldn't sell it. Every few years, somebody asked. She always said no. Who asked? I don't remember. Tammy remembered more than she wanted to say. Mia could see it in the way her aunt smoothed the edge of the folder. Tammy had done that as long as Mia had known her. When a conversation came too close to something uncomfortable, Tammy found a piece of paper and made it straight. Mia leaned toward her. Have you been inside? No. Have you seen inside? No. Then how do you know there's nothing I can use? Because the door has been shut since I was 20. Tammy said it too quickly. Mia waited. Kelsey looked between them. You were there when it was locked? Tammy's fingers stopped moving. I was there that day, she said. That doesn't mean I know what's left now. What day? Mia asked. The day your grandmother bought what was stored in it. Mia sat still. Tammy looked annoyed with herself. She had meant to get signatures, not reopen a part of Dawn's life she'd spent years treating as settled. What did she buy? Mia asked. An old theater wardrobe. Clothes? Costumes, Tammy said. Racks and racks of them. The regional theater was closing. Your grandmother bought the wardrobe, had it moved into that building, and locked the door. Why? I don't know. You never asked? Of course I asked. Dawn didn't explain herself just because someone asked. That sounded like Dawn, but only partly. Dawn ignored questions she considered foolish. She answered serious ones, sometimes after making a person wait long enough to decide whether they really wanted the answer. Mia looked again at the devise, the warehouse and its contents. Kelsey gave a short laugh that wasn't meant to be cruel, though it landed that way. So, I get the house, and Mia gets a locked costume warehouse nobody's entered since 1978. Tammy shot her a warning look. What? Kelsey said. That's what happened. Mia slid the release away from herself. Kelsey's laugh disappeared. You're not signing? I'm still reading. It's 4 pages. And you've had yours for a week. That isn't my fault. No, it's just convenient. Tammy picked up one of the pens and placed it beside Mia's hand. Take the warehouse if you want it. Nobody is stopping you. But the estate can't sit open while you decide whether an abandoned building feels meaningful. Mia looked at the pen. She thought about Dawn in the hospital, thin under a white blanket, asking Mia to bring her canvas grocery bag from the hall closet. There had been nothing unusual inside it: a comb, 2 peppermint candies, a folded electric bill, and a small notebook filled with reminders in Dawn's blocky handwriting. Call roofman, check south gutter, depot, tax due. Mia had assumed depot meant a bill connected to some old family errand. She hadn't asked. Dawn had died the next morning. Now, Mia wondered whether the warehouse had been on her grandmother's mind even there. Why did she leave it to me? Mia asked. Tammy's expression softened for the first time, but only a little. We don't know. Kelsey got the place everyone knows. I got a building nobody can enter. I didn't write the will. But you want me to sign away the right to question it. I want you to accept what Dawn decided. Then I'll accept exactly what she decided. Mia pushed the release back across the table. Tammy didn't touch it. What does that mean? It means I'm not signing this today. Kelsey stood. Her chair scraped the floor. I need the title settled. You have the house. I have paperwork that can still become a problem. I'm not making a claim on your house. Then sign that. This release is more than the house. Tammy raised one hand. Both of you stop. They did, mostly because Tammy sounded suddenly like Dawn. Mia closed the warehouse folder and held it against the table. I'll take the devise, she said. The building and whatever's legally part of it. I'll deal with the bills attached to it. But I'm not releasing something nobody will explain. Tammy looked at her with a mixture of frustration and reluctant attention. Mia hadn't given her the clean ending she wanted. She also hadn't refused Dawn's gift. You can have the papers reviewed, Tammy said. But I need an answer soon. How soon? A week. That's not a probate deadline. It's my deadline. Mia nodded. At least that was honest. Kelsey walked to the counter and picked up Dawn's coffee cup. She peeled off the yellow note, pressed it flat, and stuck it back on more firmly. Don't take anything else when you leave, she said. We haven't finished the household inventory. Mia looked at the cup, then at her sister. I wasn't going to. Kelsey's face tightened. For 1 second she seemed ashamed. Then she carried the cup to the cabinet and placed it behind the glass door. Mia gathered only the warehouse folder. Outside, late afternoon heat had settled over the street. Dawn's roses needed water. A green garden hose lay curled beside the porch, exactly where Mia had left it the last time Dawn asked for help. She stood beside her car and opened the folder again. The county sheet included a grainy photograph. The warehouse was a low brick building with a flat roof and one wide freight door. Vines covered almost half the front wall. The address numbers were missing, but somebody had written 214 in black marker beneath the picture. At the bottom, a map showed Depot Road, less than 10 minutes away. Mia checked the time. She was expected back at work in the morning, and she still had laundry in her washing machine at home. The sensible thing was to call someone who understood wills, then wait. Instead, she put the warehouse address into her phone. Kelsey watched through the dining room window as Mia backed out. Tammy was still seated at the table behind her, staring at the unsigned release. Mia turned toward Depot Road. She didn't know whether Dawn had left her a burden, a test, or a final piece of work nobody else would accept. She only knew that 3 people had discussed the warehouse before she ever saw its papers, and not one of them had gone to look at it. Mia decided that was the first thing she could change. Depot Road ran behind an old row of commercial buildings where delivery trucks had once backed up to loading docks. Most of the newer traffic passed 2 streets over. Mia nearly missed the warehouse because the vines had swallowed the front corner and covered part of the faded number plate. She pulled onto a cracked concrete apron and stopped. The county photograph had made the building look small. In person, it stretched farther down the lot than she expected. Red brick showed through the vines in uneven patches. The flat roof had a shallow metal edge, with one downspout hanging loose near the south corner. The freight door filled most of the front wall. It was made of narrow wooden panels reinforced with steel straps. The bottom edge sat dark with age. A heavy chain crossed the center and passed through a square iron lock. Rust covered the outer surface, but the chain itself was tight. Mia got out of the car. Heat rose from the concrete. Weeds brushed her ankles, and somewhere behind the building, a table saw whined and then stopped. She walked toward the door. The chain had been looped so closely that she couldn't fit 2 fingers behind it. There was no handle, only a recessed metal grip that had been painted over several times. She bent to look beneath the bottom panel. No gap, no light. The door had weathered, but it hadn't sagged. She stepped back and looked at the roofline. Near the center, newer strips of flashing showed beneath the metal cap. They weren't new enough to shine, but they were nowhere near 48 years old. The county photograph hadn't shown that. A white panel van came slowly around the side of the building. Mia moved out of its path. The driver braked, rolled down his window, and studied her through a pair of clear safety glasses. You planning to leave that car there? He asked. I can move it. I'd appreciate it. He pointed toward a narrow drive beside the warehouse. The van barely had enough room to pass between the brick wall and an old utility pole. Mia returned to her car and pulled close to the weeds. The van came through, turned across the apron, and back toward a gray block building behind the warehouse. The driver got out. He was tall, with sawdust on his dark work shirt and a pencil tucked over one ear. He looked at Mia's license plate, then at the warehouse door. "You with the estate?" he asked. "I guess I am. That sounds uncertain." "My grandmother owned this." His expression changed. "Dawn?" "Yes." He took off the safety glasses. "I'm sorry." "Thank you." He waited as if she might say more. Mia had learned during the past week that condolences often came with a pause people expected her to fill. She never knew what belonged in it. The man pointed to the building behind him. "Luke Wood." "My shop's back there. Mia Fraser." "I know who you are." That caught her off guard. "How?" "Dawn mentioned you." Mia looked at the warehouse. "Did she mention she was leaving me this?" "No." "What did she say?" Luke put the safety glasses into his shirt pocket. "Mostly that you came when you said you would." The words were so close to praise that Mia didn't trust them at first. What did she mean by that? She didn't explain. That also sounds like her. A small smile moved across his face and disappeared. He walked toward the drive and checked the space beside Mia's car. "I use this apron when I get furniture deliveries," he said. "Long truck can't make the turn behind my shop. Dawn let them unload here, then I roll everything back." "I didn't know. I figured you didn't." "Is there paperwork?" "No, just an arrangement." Mia heard what he wasn't asking yet. If she fenced the lot, sold the building, or parked across the apron, his work got harder. "I'm not changing anything today," she said. "That's good, because I have a walnut sideboard coming, Thursday. You're worried I'll block you. I'm worried I won't know what you plan until a truck's sitting in the street." Mia looked at the narrow drive. "I'll let you know." Luke nodded once. He didn't thank her as though the matter were settled. He had known Dawn well enough to trust an agreement made in conversation. He didn't know Mia at all. She walked toward the south corner. The hanging downspout had pulled away from the wall, leaving a brown line on the brick. Beneath it, leaves and dirt filled a shallow drain cut into the apron. "Does water stand here?" she asked. "After a hard rain, against the wall, sometimes." "How long has that pipe been loose?" Luke glanced up. "Recent." "How recent?" "Storm last month." "Did anyone tell my aunt?" "I called the number I had for Dawn. It was disconnected." He said it without accusation, but Mia felt one anyway. She crouched near the drain. Mud had dried around a mat of leaves. A plastic bottle cap was wedged against the grate. Her phone rang. Kelsey. Mia almost let it go. Then the old worry arrived, quick and familiar. Maybe something had happened. Maybe Tammy was sick. Maybe there was another paper. She answered. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." "Where did you put Grandma's spare house key?" Mia stood. "Which one?" "The one with the blue rubber cover, in the kitchen drawer, behind the takeout menus." "It's not there." "It was there last Tuesday." "Well, it isn't now." Mia closed her eyes. Last Tuesday had been the day they brought Dawn Holmes' unused medical supplies back to the clinic. She had unlocked the side door because Kelsey's hands were full. "Check the pocket of the green grocery bag," Mia said. "What grocery bag?" "The canvas one from the hospital. I threw it on the laundry room shelf. Then it's probably there." There was movement on Kelsey's end, a cabinet door, then footsteps. "What are you doing?" Kelsey asked. "I'm at Depot Road. You went there already?" "Yes." "Alone?" Mia looked at Luke. "Not exactly." Kelsey stopped moving. "Who's there?" "The man who owns the shop behind it." "What man?" "Luke Wood." "I've never heard of him." Neither had I. A bag rustled. Then Kelsey said, "Found it." "Good. Wait. Aunt Tammy says some of the food in the freezer needs to go. Can you come sort it?" "I don't know what's old." Mia looked through the warehouse vines toward her car. "You can read the dates. Some of it isn't labeled. If it has ice all over it, throw it away. Grandma cooked things and froze them. I don't want to toss something important." "It's soup, Kelsey." "You don't know that." Mia did know. She had spent an afternoon freezing it with Dawn in square plastic containers because Dawn insisted round ones wasted space. Vegetable soup had red lids. Chicken broth had white lids. Anything in foil was probably cornbread. Kelsey had been invited that day. She had said she was too busy and asked Mia to take pictures when they finished cleaning the freezer. "I can come tomorrow," Mia said. "Aunt Tammy wants the kitchen inventory done tonight. Then Aunt Tammy can help." Silence followed. Mia rarely spoke to her sister that way. She had imagined doing it many times, usually while driving home after agreeing to something she didn't want to do. Kelsey lowered her voice. Why are you being like this? Like what? You know what? Mia looked at Luke again. He had moved several feet away and was pretending to examine a stack of shipping blankets. I drove out here to look at the building, Mia said. I've been here 10 minutes. I didn't tell you to leave. No, you called because you need me to come back, I asked. You asked because I always do it. Kelsey didn't answer. That was the ordinary shape of things between them. Kelsey made decisions early and asked for help late. Mia filled whatever gap remained. She picked up prescriptions, met repairmen, carried folding chairs, and remembered where Dawn kept spare batteries. Being useful had felt close enough to being necessary. Mia had let herself confuse the two. At 29, she still waited for the family to notice that she was the one who stayed until the work was done. She thought enough small proofs might eventually add up to a place nobody could question. But the house had gone to Kelsey. The work had left no mark on the papers. I'll come tomorrow after work, Mia said. Not tonight. Kelsey gave a tight breath. Fine. And don't throw out the containers with red lids. That's vegetable soup. I know. She didn't, but Mia let her have it. The call ended. Luke waited another moment before turning around. Everything all right? Yes. You said that fast. My sister found a key. That usually helps. Mia put her phone into her pocket. She looked down at the clogged drain. Do you have a shovel? Luke glanced toward his shop. What kind? The kind that removes wet leaves. Not a recognized furniture tool, but I can probably manage. He returned with a flat shovel, a stiff broom, and a pair of work gloves. The gloves were too large for Mia, but she pulled them on. You don't have to do this now, he said. It'll rain tomorrow, probably. And water stands here, probably. You use that word a lot? When I don't own the building. Mia pushed the shovel beneath the dried mat of leaves. The first layer lifted cleanly. Underneath, black mud packed the drain opening. Luke held a contractor bag while she filled it. He didn't take over, though he showed her how to angle the shovel without scraping the old concrete. After several minutes, Mia uncovered the grate. It had a hinged iron cover stamped with the name of a local foundry that no longer existed. She pulled at the ring. It didn't move. Luke brought a small pry bar from his van. Together they lifted the grate far enough to see the drain channel beneath it. The pipe was open. The blockage had been entirely on top. That's better news than I expected, Mia said. It's a low standard, but yes. She swept dirt from the channel, leading away from the wall. Luke carried the full bag to a bin behind his shop. When he came back, Mia was looking at the loose downspout. I can strap that temporarily, he said. Won't be pretty. I'm starting to think pretty isn't the first problem. That building's had worse days. You sound sure. Luke took the pencil from his ear and rolled it between his fingers. Dawn didn't ignore the place. Mia looked at the strips of flashing along the roof. Someone worked on it. Yes. You? Luke put the pencil back. Sometimes. How many times? Enough that we should have a longer conversation before you start making plans. I don't have plans. You came here on the same day you got the papers. I came to look, and now you're clearing a drain. Mia looked down at the mud on the borrowed gloves. He had a point. Luke picked up the broom. Dawn used to check that channel herself. Every spring and after big storms. Why? To keep water out of the wall. I mean, why protect a building she never opened? Luke glanced toward the freight door. Ask your aunt what Dawn bought with it. She told me. Costumes from a theater? She told you that much? Yes. He seemed surprised. What aren't you telling me? Mia asked. I don't know what's inside. You worked for her. I worked outside. For how long? A while. That's not an answer. It's the answer I'm giving until I know whether you're keeping the place or selling it. The directness irritated her, but she understood it. His loading access depended on her decision. Whatever loyalty he had felt toward Dawn didn't automatically belong to Dawn's granddaughter. Mia removed the gloves and handed them back. I haven't accepted it yet. Luke looked at the warehouse folder on the hood of her car. But you haven't refused it. No. A breeze moved through the vines. Dead leaves scraped the brick, revealing a narrow strip of old painted surface underneath. Mia stepped closer. At first she thought the pale shape was water damage. Then she saw a straight line beneath the leaves, too even to be natural. Has there always been paint there? She asked. Luke followed her gaze. Probably. She gave him a look. He raised both hands. I've never cleared those vines. Dawn told me not to. Why? She said they weren't hurting the masonry yet. That isn't a reason to leave them. It was her reason. Mia touched one of the thick stems. It had rooted in soil at the base of the wall and climbed toward the roof. Several branches were dead, but newer green growth had wrapped around them. Her phone buzzed with a message from Tammy. Please confirm you received all documents, Mia typed back. Received. I'm reviewing them. She almost added that she was at the warehouse. She erased the sentence before sending it. Luke fastened the downspout to the wall with a temporary metal strap. When he finished, he poured a bucket of water into the cleared channel. It ran through the grate and disappeared without pooling against the brick. There was the first useful answer the building had given her. The drain worked. Someone had kept it working until recently. The warehouse hadn't simply survived because nobody cared enough to tear it down. Mia watched the last water vanish. I'll be back tomorrow, she said. Luke set down the empty bucket. For what? She looked at the pale line beneath the vines. To find out what that paint says. Luke looked at the vine, then at Mia. You'll want thicker gloves, he said. The next afternoon, Mia stopped at Dawn's house first. Kelsey had arranged the frozen containers across the kitchen counter. The red lids were on one side, white lids on the other, and the foil packages sat in a grocery bag on the floor. I thought the red ones were chili, Kelsey said. They're vegetable soup. How can you tell? Grandma told me. Kelsey took a strip of masking tape from a drawer and began labeling the containers. You could have written it down. Mia almost said that Kelsey could have come that day. Instead, she opened a foil package, cornbread. She had made a promise, so she sorted the freezer. What she didn't do was wash the empty drawers, carry the trash outside, or reorganize the pantry when Kelsey mentioned that it needed attention. That was new enough for both of them to notice. You in a hurry? Kelsey asked. I'm going back to Depot Road. What for? To clear some vines. Kelsey stopped writing. Why? There's paint underneath them. What kind of paint? I don't know yet. You're going to work on a building you haven't accepted? I'm going to remove vines. That's work. I understand. Kelsey put the marker down. Mia, don't start spending money because you're upset. I bought gloves and pruning shears. That's how it starts. Mia closed the freezer drawer. How what starts? You decide something means more than it does. Then you keep going because you don't want to admit you were wrong. The words had history behind them. Mia had once kept a failing car running for 2 years because Dawn had helped her buy it. She had stayed too long in an apartment with a leaking ceiling because moving felt like admitting she couldn't make the rent work. Kelsey wasn't inventing the pattern. That was what made it hard to dismiss. I'm not fixing the whole building today, Mia said. Good. I'm finding out what the wall says. Kelsey picked up the marker again. Aunt Tammy thinks you're making this personal. It is personal. Grandma left it to me. That's not what I mean. I know. Mia put the cornbread back in the grocery bag. Kelsey watched her wipe her hands on a dish towel. She wanted to say something that would return them to normal, where Mia handled the difficult part, and Kelsey thanked her afterward. Instead, she said, There's another bag in the chest freezer. I'll look at it another day. You're already here. And now, I'm leaving. Mia took her car keys from the counter. She felt rude for almost half the drive to Depot Road. That was another pattern she hadn't noticed until she interrupted it. Saying no left her with the discomfort everyone else avoided. Luke's van was parked beside his shop. The warehouse apron was clear except for a furniture dolly and 2 folded moving blankets. Mia opened her trunk and took out the gloves, pruning shears, a bow saw, and 3 contractor bags. Luke came around the corner carrying a wooden drawer with its brass pulls removed. You came prepared, he said. I bought the shovel too, but it wouldn't fit in the trunk. That's how hardware stores get you. 1 drain, and suddenly you own landscaping equipment. She held up the pruning shears. Are these enough? For the small growth. Don't pull anything that's rooted in the mortar. What do I do with that? Cut it at the base. Let it dry before you ease it out. You sound like you've done this. I restore furniture in Tennessee. Half my work starts with somebody saying it was stored under a vine. He carried the drawer into his shop, then returned with a long-handled lopper and a canvas tool belt. Mia looked at the tool belt. I thought I was doing this. You are. I'm protecting the route my deliveries use. Is that what we're calling it? It's what I'm calling it until I see how much poison ivy is mixed in. There wasn't any poison ivy, but there were thorns hidden beneath the broad leaves. Mia found the first one with her wrist. Luke showed her how to separate the newer vine from the thick woody stems underneath. They began at the edge nearest the freight door, cutting the green growth into sections and rolling it away from the brick. The first section came down in one heavy sheet. Dust rose from the wall. A pale blue curve appeared beneath it. Mia brushed away loose leaves with the back of her glove. The paint had faded almost to gray, but it was clearly part of a letter. Luke stepped closer. "That's old sign paint," he said. "How can you tell?" It sank into the brick. Nobody painted that recently. They cleared another 3 feet. The curve became a wide capital R. Beside it, a narrow white line marked the edge of another letter. Mia stood back. "It's too high to read from here." Luke brought a short platform ladder from his shop. He set it on level concrete and held it while Mia climbed 2 steps. From there, she could see that the paint continued behind a thick branch running toward the roof. She cut the smaller stems first. The branch had grown tight against the wall, and she couldn't slide the saw behind it without touching the brick. "Cut from the front," Luke said, "small strokes." The wood gave way slowly. When it loosened, he supported the weight so it wouldn't tear loose whatever lay beneath. More letters appeared. Ward. Mia climbed down and moved farther along the wall. They worked for nearly an hour before enough of the stencil showed to make sense. The words stretched across the brick in 2 lines. Some letters were missing where the paint had flaked away, but the name at the top was readable. Rutherford Regional Theater. Below it, in larger block letters, were the words, "Wardrobe Store." Mia wiped sweat from her forehead with her sleeve. Luke stood on the apron with both hands on his hips. "Well, you knew about this?" "No. You never saw the letters?" "The vines were already thick when I started working back here." "When was that?" 2008. "And Grandma told you not to clear them." "She told me to leave the wall alone unless the roots got into the mortar." Mia took out her phone and photographed the stencil. The picture looked clearer on the screen than the wall did in front of her. The pale letters stood out against the dark brick. The freight door filled the edge of the frame, still chained. This wasn't proof that anything had survived inside. It did confirm that the theater wardrobe hadn't been an odd story Tammy remembered incorrectly. The building itself had been marked for that purpose. Mia walked to the corner and examined the exposed brick. Several mortar joints near the ground had opened. One crack ran upward through 5 rows before stopping beneath an old repair. "Was that visible before?" she asked. "Not all of it." "Is it bad?" "It needs a mason." "That means yes. It means I restore chairs, not walls." Luke crouched near the crack. He pressed the end of his pencil gently into one joint. The mortar crumbled at the surface. "The vines kept rain off some areas and held moisture against others," he said. "Taking them down was still the right move. Now you know what they covered." Mia looked along the wall. More growth remained than they had removed. The deliberate action had worked. She could read the sign. It had also turned a green wall into a list of questions she couldn't ignore. "How much exterior work did you do for Dawn?" she asked. Luke stood and dusted his hands. "Mostly routine things. Cleaned the roof drains, reset loose flashing, repaired the vent covers, replaced sealant where the metal edge meets the brick." "She paid you?" "Yes." "From when?" "Not every year. Whenever she called. She kept paying to protect a building she wouldn't open." "Yes." "Did you ever ask why?" "Once." "What did she say?" "That the shell had to hold." Mia waited for more. "That was it," Luke said. "What did you think she meant?" "I thought she was keeping the weather out." "Of what?" "I didn't know." He looked toward the freight door. He had wondered, of course. Anyone would. But Dawn had trusted him with a boundary, not an explanation. He maintained the exterior and never asked for the lock to be opened. "She taught me a lot when I was starting out," he said. "How to slow down. How to tell old damage from active damage. How not to remove something just because I didn't understand it. You called yourself her apprentice yesterday. I said I worked for her. You made it sound like repair jobs. They were repair jobs. But she taught you." "Yes." Mia looked again at the stencil. "Why didn't she teach me?" Luke considered that before answering. "Maybe she did." "That sounds nice, but it doesn't answer anything." "No, it doesn't." Mia took another photograph, closer this time. Below the main lettering, a smaller line had survived near the door frame. She cleared it with a soft brush from Luke's shop. "Property of Rutherford Regional Theater." The words ended at the freight door. Luke examined them. That could cause an argument. Why? People see property of and stop reading history. Tammy witnessed the sale. Does she have the bill of sale? She didn't mention one. Then ask. Mia called Tammy. Her aunt answered on the fourth ring. I'm eating. I found the theater name. There was a pause. What are you talking about? Under the vines. The warehouse says Rutherford Regional Theater, wardrobe store. Tammy set something down on her end. You went out there? Yes, and started pulling things off the building? I cut back part of the vine. You don't own it yet. That's why I'm calling. Tammy went quiet. Mia continued. You said Grandma bought the wardrobe. Did you see any paperwork? I told you I was there. What did you witness? The sale. What does that mean? It means I watched your grandmother pay for it. With cash? No. A bank check. Who sold it to her? The theater board. Or whoever was left of it. And you signed something? Tammy's hesitation answered first. I witnessed her signature, she said. On the bill of sale? I believe so. Where is it? I have no idea. You saw Grandma sign it? Yes. And then, what happened? Men loaded the costumes onto rolling racks and took them into the warehouse. It took most of the day. You went inside? The door was open while they loaded. Mia looked at the chain. What was it like? Like a warehouse. Aunt Tammy, I don't remember every detail from 48 years ago. Do you remember whether the wardrobe was already damaged? It was used. Some pieces were old even then, but it wasn't trash. No. Why did Grandma lock it? Tammy's voice hardened. That was Dawn's decision. And you never went inside again? No, did she? Not while I was present. Mia looked at Luke. He was listening without pretending otherwise. Did Grandma say what she planned to do with it? She said she needed time. For what? She didn't say. Tammy wanted the conversation over. Mia could hear a television in the background and the light tap of silverware against a plate. I'm accepting the warehouse, Mia said. You said you wanted the papers reviewed. I still do. I'm not signing the release, but I'm accepting the specific devise. Tammy let out a slow breath, then sign the acknowledgement and send it back. The acknowledgement that only covers the property and contents? Yes. I'll send it tonight. You need insurance as soon as the transfer is recorded. I know. And don't open that door without checking the structure. I wasn't planning to. That lock may not even move. I'm not opening it yet. Tammy was silent again. Mia could tell the word yet had landed. Be careful, Tammy said. It was the first thing she had said that sounded like concern. Then she ended the call. Mia lowered the phone. Luke nodded toward the crack. She's right about checking the structure. I know. You need the roof looked at from above, the masonry checked, and someone from the city may want to see the interior. They can't see it until the door opens. That's one of your problems. One of them? Luke pointed up. A section of the metal roof edge had lifted at the far corner. It was only an inch, maybe less, but it cast a thin, dark line against the sky. We couldn't see that through the vines, he said. Mia photographed it. Back at her apartment that evening, she read the acknowledgement again. It transferred responsibility for taxes, insurance, maintenance, and any required repairs once the devise was recorded. It didn't settle the rest of the estate. It didn't waive her questions. She signed that page and sent it to Tammy. Then she searched the city website for building inspections. The online form asked whether she was the owner. Mia selected pending transfer. It asked why she wanted an inspection. She typed visible exterior deterioration, long-term closure, planned stabilization before entry. There was an appointment available 2 mornings later. Mia booked it before she could talk herself out of knowing what the answer might cost. The inspector arrived 9 minutes early in a white city truck. Mia was already there with a folder, a bottle of water, and the uneasy feeling that she had invited someone to tell her exactly how foolish she'd been. Luke stood on the apron drinking coffee from a metal cup. He had moved his van behind the warehouse so the inspector could reach the south wall. The inspector stepped out wearing a reflective vest and carrying a tablet. She looked at the freight door, the exposed stencil, and the remaining vines. Who requested the inspection? I did, Mia said. You're taking ownership? The transfer is being recorded. Current owner is still the estate? Yes. The inspector entered that information. Executor's contact is on the form? Yes. Mia had provided Tammy's number because the form required it. She hadn't told Tammy first. That had seemed less serious while sitting alone in her apartment. The inspector walked to the cracked mortar and pushed a thin metal probe into one of the open joints. She checked the downspout, then followed the wall toward the back. "What's on the other side?" she asked. "The interior," Mia said. "No offices along this wall?" "I don't think so." "You don't have drawings?" "No." "Access?" Mia pointed to the freight door. The inspector studied the chain. "Any other entrance?" "That's the only one." "Windows?" "None." "Roof hatch?" "Not that we know of." The inspector looked at Luke. "I've only maintained the outside," he said. "How long?" "Off and on since 2008. "You been on the roof recently?" "Not since last spring." "What condition then?" "Membrane was holding. Some ponding near the northwest drain. Parapeat cap. Needed sealant. Was it repaired?" "I repaired the sealant. Cleared the drain." The inspector entered that too. Mia watched information pass from Luke into a city record. Until that moment, the maintenance had belonged to private arrangements between him and Dawn. Now, every answer had weight. The inspector set a ladder against the north side. Luke held it while she climbed high enough to look over the roof edge. She took photographs from 3 positions, then came down and moved the ladder. At the west corner, she looked longer. "Roof deck dips near that drain," she said. "How bad?" Mia asked. "I can't tell from here." "Does that mean the roof is failing?" "It means I can't tell from here." Mia understood why Luke used probably so often. The inspector examined the passive vents high on the side walls. Each had a metal hood and a mesh screen behind it. One screen had pulled loose at the bottom. "These original?" she asked. "The covers were already here when I started," Luke said. "I replaced the mesh twice." "Air moving through?" "When there's wind." "Any smell?" Luke shook his head. "Cedar sometimes. Damp brick after rain." Mia turned toward him. "Cedar?" "From the vents. You never mentioned that." "You didn't ask what it smelled like." The inspector gave them both a brief look, then shone a flashlight through the loose edge of the mesh. Mia stepped closer without meaning to. The beam reached only a short distance. Dust moved through it. Something vertical stood several feet beyond the opening, but the angle was too poor to tell whether it was a wall, a rack, or a stack of boards. The inspector switched off the light. "I can't inspect the interior through a vent," she said, "and I'm not ordering this door opened in its current condition." "Why not?" Mia asked. The inspector pointed above the freight door. A steel lintel carried the brick across the wide opening. Rust had pushed through the paint at both ends. A thin crack rose from the right corner into the mortar. That needs support before anyone moves the door. The door may be helping hold its own frame square. You release the chain, something shifts, you could lose brick. So, we brace it first. A qualified contractor braces it, not you. I understand. You also need the roof edge secured before anybody works below it. Luke looked up at the lifted metal. "I can strap that section," he said. "Temporary weather work is fine. Structural repair needs to match the order once it's issued." The inspector walked the building again, this time measuring cracks and photographing every wall. She tapped the brick with the handle of her probe. Most areas gave a hard, solid sound. Near the south corner, several joints sounded dull. Mia followed her. "Is the building unsafe?" she asked. "Parts of the exterior are unsafe to work under." "That wasn't what I asked." The inspector lowered the probe. "The building is standing. The walls are mostly straight. The roof is carrying itself." "That's more than I can say about some properties that have been vacant 5 years. Mia looked at the long brick wall. "So it can be stabilized?" "Yes." The answer came without warmth, but it was the first official answer Mia had received that didn't treat the warehouse as a mistake. "Does it need to come down?" she asked. "Not from what I can see." Luke took a slow drink of coffee. Mia hadn't realized he was waiting for that answer too. The inspector continued. "That doesn't mean it's ready for use. It means demolition isn't the required correction right now." "What is?" The inspector turned the tablet so Mia could see the photographs. "Secure the parapet cap. Repair the open mortar joints. Brace and repair the freight opening. Correct roof drainage. Replace the damaged vent screens. Remove vegetation that's holding moisture or obstructing inspection. Then we need controlled access to complete the interior review. Controlled access means opening the door after the opening is supported, and if the inside is worse, then you'll get another list." Mia almost laughed, but the inspector wasn't joking. "How long do I have?" "I'll issue a notice to the estate. Standard correction period is 90 days. Mia looked at Luke. "From today?" "From service of the notice," the inspector said. "It'll likely go out tomorrow. What happens if the work isn't done?" You request an extension before the deadline and show progress, or the city moves to further enforcement. Don't wait until the last week. Further enforcement means fines? It can. It can also mean an unsafe structure hearing. The words brought Tammy into Mia's mind immediately. The inspector took one final photograph of the stencil. "What was this place?" she asked. "A theater wardrobe store," Mia said. "Anything still inside?" "We don't know." The inspector looked at the chain. "Then keep it that way until the opening is safe." She left a temporary notice in a clear sleeve attached to the freight door. It stated that entry wasn't approved and listed the visible conditions requiring correction. Mia watched the city truck turn off Depot Road. Luke set his empty cup on the hood of his van. "Well," he said. "She said it doesn't need to come down." "She did. That's good. It is. You don't sound like it." Mia walked to the notice and read it again. 90 days. That's the other thing she said. "How much? For all of it?" "Yes, I'd need bids. Roughly." Luke studied the roofline, then the freight opening. More than 30. Less than 60 if the roof deck isn't rotten. That's not a range. That's a threat. It's an honest range. Mia opened her folder and wrote down every item the inspector had named. Luke went to his shop and returned with a folding ruler. They measured the freight opening, then the damaged mortar areas. He gave Mia the names of a mason and a commercial roofer who had worked on older buildings. She called both from the apron. The mason could come that afternoon. The roofer offered the following morning. Neither would discuss a real price without seeing the property. By the time the mason arrived, the sun had moved behind the warehouse. He spent 20 minutes checking the joints and another 10 looking at the lintel. He didn't say much. He wrote measurements on a printed estimate sheet, photographed the cracks, and promised a price that evening. The roofer came the next morning. He and Luke used proper roof access equipment from the rear, while Mia waited below. When they came down, the roofer said the deck had one weakened area near the northwest drain, but most of it remained sound. "Someone kept the drains clear," he said. Luke nodded. "If they hadn't," the roofer continued, "you'd be talking about a replacement instead of repairs." Mia asked what the difference would cost, enough that you should be glad they kept them clear. His estimate arrived before lunch. The masons came an hour later. Luke sat beside Mia on the loading apron while she added the amounts with the calculator on her phone. Roof stabilization, drainage correction, parapet work, masonry repair, freight opening support, vent screens, equipment rental, and inspection follow-up. The total came to $46,000. Mia checked it twice. "That includes Luke doing some of the work," she said. Luke leaned over the papers. "Only the non-structural parts, and it assumes the roof doesn't get worse when they open it." "Yes, and it doesn't include anything inside." "No." She rested the phone on her knee. Her savings could cover part of it, not comfortably and not without removing the thin protection she had built between herself and a missed paycheck, a car repair, or a rent increase. She had spent years saving in small amounts, $50 after a good month, $20 when the electric bill ran high. Dawn had known that. Dawn used to tease her for keeping 3 different savings envelopes, even after Mia opened a proper account. The warehouse could take most of that work before Mia ever saw what was behind the door. Luke picked up the mason's estimate. "You don't have to decide today. The notice goes out today. That starts the clock. It doesn't spend the money. If I wait a month, I lose a month. If you rush, you could hire the wrong people." Mia took the estimate back. "Are these the wrong people?" "No." "Then what am I waiting to learn? Whether you want the responsibility more than you want the answer." Mia looked at the freight door. She had thought opening it was the objective. Clear the vines, inspect the building, make the lock move, and finally see why Dawn had kept it. Now the door had become the last step in a chain of expensive work. Curiosity wasn't enough to carry that. Her phone rang. Tammy's name appeared on the screen. Mia answered. "What did you do?" Tammy asked. The question came so sharply that Mia stood. "I requested an inspection. The estate just received a correction notice." "I know. You put an open code matter on a property we're trying to transfer. The problems were already there. The notice wasn't." Luke moved away to give her privacy. Mia held the phone tighter. "Would you rather I open the door under cracked brick?" "I would rather you had spoken to me before involving the city. You wanted me to take responsibility for the warehouse. I wanted probate closed. Those aren't the same thing." Tammy went silent. Mia could hear another voice in the background. "Kelsey." "Aunt Tammy, put me on speaker," Kelsey said. A second later, Tammy's voice sounded farther away. "You're on." Kelsey spoke first. "The stencil picture is online." Mia frowned. "What?" "Someone posted it in a local history group." "I didn't post anything. Did you send it to anyone?" "Only you and Aunt Tammy," Tammy said. "I forwarded it to a friend who used to volunteer with the Arts Council," Kelsey continued. "People recognize the theater name. One person asked if the wardrobe is still inside." Mia looked toward the freight door. "What did you tell them?" "Nothing." "I don't know anything. Then keep it that way." Kelsey's tone changed. "Mia, if people are already interested, maybe you shouldn't spend $46,000. Maybe you should sell the building unopened." "Who said I was selling?" "Nobody. I'm saying you have an option. An option you didn't mention when it was just a liability." "That was before strangers started asking about it," Tammy cut in. "No one makes any agreement until the transfer and the code notice are handled." The boundary sounded official, but Mia heard the fear beneath it. The warehouse had stopped being a quiet burden they could hand her and forget. Mia looked at the pale theater name on the wall. "I'm not making an agreement," she said, "and I'm not signing the release." "Mia," Kelsey began, "I have 90 days to stabilize the building. That's what I'm dealing with now." She ended the call before either of them could give her another role to perform. Luke stood near his shop door, waiting. Mia walked over and held out the estimates. "Can you help me put the work in the right order?" He looked at the total, then at her. "Only if you're serious." Mia glanced back at the locked freight door and the city notice hanging from its chain. "Show me what has to happen first." Luke spread the estimates across his workbench and put 4 scrap blocks on the corners to hold them flat. His shop smelled of wood shavings and boiled linseed oil. Half-finished furniture stood along the walls with paper tags tied to the drawer pulls. A walnut sideboard sat on padded stands near the center, its top removed. He circled the drainage work first. "Water before masonry," he said. "No point repairing joints if the wall keeps getting wet." Then the roof edge, temporary strap now. Full cap repair with the roofer. And the vines. We remove anything holding moisture, but slowly. The city needs to see the brick, and the mason needs clear joints. Mia wrote numbers beside each task. "What about the freight door?" "Last." "That's the part I need open. That's why it's last. Everything above it has to stay where it belongs." She didn't like the answer, but she wrote 4 beside it. Luke tapped the vent screen estimate. "We can do this ourselves." "Is that allowed?" "It's not structural. The inspector said damaged screens had to be replaced." "She didn't say you had to pay someone to operate a screwdriver." "How much does that save?" "Not much. I'll take not much." They started on the north wall, where the vines were thinner. Mia cut the live stems while Luke loosened dead growth with a flat wooden tool that wouldn't scrape the brick. By noon, the sun had heated the wall through their shirts. Mia's arms ached from holding the lopper overhead. Small pieces of vine filled her hair. Luke lowered a bundle into a contractor bag. "Take a break." "I'm fine." "You're cutting slower." I said, "I'm fine." "You can be fine and tired at the same time." Mia set down the lopper. Luke went into his shop and came back with 2 bottles of cold water. They sat in the strip of shade beside the freight door. The chain hung inches from Mia's shoulder. "Did Grandma come out here often?" she asked. "More when I first knew her." "How often?" "Every month or 2. Sometimes she'd park, walk the walls, and leave. Without going inside, yes." "Did she ever bring anybody?" "Not while I was here." "What did she check?" "Brick, drains, vent covers, same things we're checking." Mia turned the water bottle between her palms. "She was 70 when you started working with her." Luke nodded. "And she climbed onto the roof." "Not after I met her. She hired me for that." "How did you meet?" "I was repairing a dining chair for a customer 2 streets over. Dawn saw the chair in my truck and told me I was using the wrong glue." "Was she right?" "Yes." "What did you say?" "That it was reversible." "What did she say?" "That bad work being reversible didn't make it good." Mia laughed before she could stop herself. Luke smiled. "Then she made me remove it and start over." "She made you?" She stood there. "That sounds right." Mia had known Dawn as the woman who kept rubber bands around cabinet knobs and washed plastic forks after family picnics. She hadn't known her as someone who could correct a furniture restorer's glue or plan roof maintenance for a sealed warehouse. The gap bothered her. It also made her want to keep working. They returned to the vines. Near the first high vent, A woody stem had grown beneath the metal hood. Luke cut it at the base, and Mia used the platform ladder to reach the upper section. The stem had bent the loose mesh inward. When Mia eased it away, a dry piece of leaf fell through the opening. She froze. "Did that go inside?" "Yes," Luke said. "Can we get it back?" "Not without opening the building." She stared at the narrow, dark space. One leaf was nothing. Still, it was the first thing she had watched cross that boundary in either direction. "Let's get the screen on now," she said. They removed the damaged mesh and measured the opening. Luke cut replacement copper screen in his shop, folded the edges, and brought it back with new fasteners. Mia held the screen while he fixed the upper corners. Then they switched so she could attach the bottom edge. The old screw holes were stripped. She shifted the screen slightly and made new pilot holes in sound wood behind the frame. Luke checked her spacing. "That'll hold." "You sound surprised." "I sound accurate." They fastened the last corner. Air moved through the screen. The scent was faint, but distinct. Cedar, not mildew, not rot. Mia leaned toward the opening. "You smell that?" "Yes." "Would cedar still smell after all this time? If there's enough of it? Closed cabinets, wall lining, storage chests." "Costume storage use cedar, sometimes. So that's good. It's information. That means you don't want me getting excited. It means air from one vent can't tell us what survived in the whole building." Mia looked through the mesh. The interior remained dark. Still, the vent was protected again. The action had produced something she could see. One opening no longer admitted leaves, insects, or rain. She climbed down. A car turned onto the apron. Kelsey parked behind Mia and remained inside for several seconds. She wore work clothes, but they were the kind she used for painting a bedroom, clean jeans and an old college shirt without any stains. Mia removed her gloves. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to see it. You've seen the picture. That's not the same." Kelsey got out and looked up at the stencil. Without the vines, the building seemed less forgotten and more exposed. "It's bigger than I thought," she said. "That's what I thought too." Kelsey walked toward the freight door but stopped before the city notice. "Is that the violation?" "Correction order. It says no entry until the opening is supported." Kelsey read the entire notice. "Aunt Tammy says this could delay probate. The house was separately devised. She still has to clear everything. So do I." Kelsey looked at the tools, the bags of vines, and the new screen. "How much have you spent?" "Not much yet." "That isn't what I asked. Gloves, shears, bags, some hardware, and the $46,000? "I haven't signed the contracts." Kelsey's shoulders relaxed. She had driven there afraid Mia had already committed herself. "Good," she said, "because I found someone who may be interested." Mia looked at her. "Interested in what?" "The building. You said you didn't tell anyone anything. I didn't promise not to listen." "Who?" "Someone from the history group knows a person who buys unusual commercial property." "I don't have a name yet." "Then you haven't found someone. I found a possible way out." Mia glanced at Luke. He had gone back to the north wall, but his pace had slowed. "Did you tell them it was for sale?" Mia asked. "I said the family might consider an offer. The family doesn't own it. The estate still does. The estate is transferring it to me. I know that. I'm trying to help. By advertising my property?" "It isn't your property yet." Mia felt the answer before she formed it. "Then it isn't yours to advertise either." Kelsey looked away toward the cracked wall. "I don't want to watch you lose your savings," she said. "That's fair. I mean it. I know. Then why are you acting like I'm trying to take something? Because you didn't come here until someone else showed interest." Kelsey rubbed one thumb over the edge of her phone case. She hadn't intended to take the warehouse. She wanted the opposite. She wanted it converted into money or handed to someone who wouldn't complicate her house title. In her mind, that was still concern. "The assessment is $34,000, she said. "If somebody offered close to that and took the code problem, you could walk away with something. Or they could pay $34 and discover something worth keeping. You don't know there's anything inside, neither do they. That's how property works. Someone takes a risk. I'm taking it." Kelsey looked toward the freight door. "Why?" Mia could have said, "Because Dawn chose her." She could have said, "Because the vent smelled like cedar," or because the roof had survived through years of maintenance nobody mentioned. Instead, she said, "Because I'm not done finding out what I accepted." Kelsey's mouth tightened. "That isn't a financial reason, no." "Then at least let someone make an offer?" "No. You don't even have to accept it. I'm not letting strangers bid on a sealed building while I'm working to make it safe. Kelsey stepped closer. You can't afford this just to prove Aunt Tammy wrong. This isn't about proving her wrong. Then what is it about? Mia looked at the new copper screen. I don't know yet. Kelsey gave a frustrated laugh. That's exactly the problem. Luke set down his tool. The delivery truck comes tomorrow morning, he said to Mia. I need this half of the apron clear by 8. Kelsey turned toward him. We're talking. I know. I'm telling the property holder what I need. The phrase stopped all three of them. Mia hadn't expected him to call her that. Kelsey clearly hadn't either. Luke continued. If the apron's blocked, the truck can't unload. Dawn and I had an arrangement. Kelsey looked at Mia. Are you responsible for his access now too? Not legally, Luke said. I asked my sister, Mia answered. I told him I wouldn't block it without warning. So now you're promising access to people before the property transfers? I'm keeping an arrangement Grandma already made. An arrangement nobody wrote down. Mia understood the warning. Kelsey believed unwritten obligations were how Mia got trapped. Sometimes she was right. I'll talk to Luke about what he needs, Mia said. You don't need to handle it. Kelsey stared at her. That was another sentence Mia rarely used. You've decided then, Kelsey said. I accepted the devise. That's not what I mean. I'm not selling it unopened. Kelsey picked a dry vine from her sleeve. Aunt Tammy needs to know that. She knows I'm stabilizing it. She thinks you're still considering your options. I am. Selling it unopened isn't one of them. Kelsey walked back to her car. Before getting in, she took a photograph of the stencil and another of the correction notice. Who are those for? Mia asked. My records. You don't need records of my court order. If it affects probate, I do. She drove away without saying goodbye. Luke waited until her car turned the corner. Property holder may have been premature, he said. It was accurate enough. For today. Mia put her gloves back on. They cleared the delivery side of the apron first. Luke moved the furniture dolly, and Mia swept loose vine pieces from the truck road. The next morning, she arrived before 8. A long delivery truck backed onto the apron under Luke's direction. Mia stood near the street and watched the rear clearance. The driver lowered a wrapped walnut sideboard onto the lift gate. Luke and Mia rolled it across the concrete and through the narrow drive to his shop. The repaired drain grate held under the dolly wheels. The cleared apron gave them the turning room they needed. Once the sideboard was inside, Luke ran one hand over the moving blanket. Dawn used to stand where you stood, he said. She watched the street side because drivers couldn't see the pole. Mia folded the loose straps. You could have told me that yesterday. I wanted to see if you showed up. The words should have annoyed her. Instead, she understood. Her phone buzzed with an email from Tammy. Attached was confirmation that the warehouse devise had been recorded. A second attachment showed the code deadline. The property was now hers, along with the correction order and everything the locked building might require. A message from Kelsey followed seconds later. Before you spend your savings, we need to discuss whether anything inside was actually devised with the real estate. Mia read it twice. Then she looked toward the freight door and saw Kelsey's car parked across Depot Road. Kelsey crossed the road with her phone in one hand. She waited for the delivery truck to pull away, then stopped at the edge of the apron. You saw my message? Yes, and the will says the warehouse and its contents. It says contents associated with the property. Mia opened the attachment again. No, it doesn't. That may be what it means. According to who? Aunt Tammy. She drafted Grandma's will now? I'm not saying that. Then what are you saying? Kelsey came closer and lowered her voice. The wall says the costumes belong to the theater. The wall is older than Grandma's purchase. Can you prove that? Aunt Tammy watched her buy them. She remembers witnessing something 48 years ago. There's no bill of sale in the probate file. Mia looked toward Luke's shop. He had rolled the sideboard inside and left the door open, but he remained out of sight. Kelsey, why are you looking for a way to separate the building from whatever's inside? I'm looking for a way to keep this from becoming another problem, for your house, for all of us. You have the house. I don't have clear title until Tammy finishes her work. And you think my warehouse is stopping that? I think an open code order and questions about estate property won't help. Mia folded her arms. What do you want me to do? Let Tammy contact the person who's interested. There is no person. There's a friend of someone in an online group. There could be a real offer. I said, I'm not selling it unopened. And now you own it, so you can say no. But if the costumes weren't Grandma's to devise, that's different. They were hers. Then find the paperwork. The request was reasonable. Kelsey knew it, and Mia knew it. That didn't make the pressure behind it reasonable. Mia looked at the stencil. Where have you searched? I haven't searched anywhere. Then you don't know there's no record. Tammy went through Grandma's estate files. Did she go through every box in the house? Kelsey's eyes moved toward the road. There aren't many boxes left. What does that mean? We've been clearing things. You said the household inventory wasn't finished. It is now. You finished it since yesterday? Aunt Tammy came over. And you threw things out? Nothing important. Mia felt her stomach tighten. How would you know? Kelsey's face hardened. Because I live there now. I can't preserve every grocery receipt and dead pen. Because you think Grandma hid a message in it. I didn't say she hid anything. You're acting like this building is a puzzle she built for you. I'm asking whether you threw out business papers. No. We put papers in the study. All of them, as far as I know. Mia walked to her car and opened the door. Where are you going? To look. I have an appointment in an hour. Then give me the key. Kelsey stared at her. Mia waited. For years, Mia had entered that house without knocking. She watered the roses, checked the thermostat, and carried groceries through the side door. Now, asking for a key felt like asking permission to visit a place where she had already done years of work. I'm not giving out keys until the inventory is signed, Kelsey said. You called me yesterday because you couldn't find one. That was different. You needed me. Mia, I need to see the papers. I'll go through them with you tonight. You'll choose what I'm allowed to see. It's my house. There it was, clear and uncomplicated. Mia closed the car door without getting in. Then bring every paper connected to Depot Road, she said. Not what you think matters. Everything. I'll ask Aunt Tammy. Don't ask her. Tell her. Kelsey's expression changed. She wasn't used to Mia giving instructions in the same plain tone Kelsey used every day. Fine, she said. Tonight. She crossed the road and drove away. Luke came out, carrying 2 padded clamps. I didn't hear all of that, he said. You heard enough. Yes. They cleared Dawn's things without me. Were you supposed to help? I always helped. That isn't what I asked. Mia looked at him. No one had formally excluded her. Kelsey had mentioned sorting the house several times, and Mia had kept accepting smaller jobs instead of asking who was deciding what stayed. She had sorted food while Tammy and Kelsey sorted papers. She had participated in her own removal because being useful felt safer than demanding an equal place at the table. No, she said. I wasn't asked to help with the decisions. Luke adjusted one clamp against the other. What do you need to do today? The question steadied her. Stop water. They attached a temporary strap to the lifted roof edge, working from Luke's access equipment while staying clear of the weakened area. Then they cleared the northwest drain from below with jointed rods. A plug of wet leaves came loose first. Behind it came black water that rushed through the downspout and spread across the apron. Mia jumped back too late. Water soaked her shoes. Luke looked down at them. Good news. My socks disagree. The pipe's open. They flushed it again until the water ran clear. Clouds had gathered by mid-afternoon. The forecast had moved the expected storm forward by nearly a day. Luke checked the temporary roof strap. It'll hold through ordinary wind, he said. And if it isn't ordinary, we stay away from the edge and see what the building tells us. Rain started before Mia could leave. At first it was a light tapping on the roof of her car. Then the sky darkened and water came across the apron in sheets. Mia and Luke stood inside his shop doorway. The repaired downspout took the first heavy flow. Water rushed through the channel they had cleared and disappeared beneath the grate. Nothing pooled against the south wall. Mia watched the lifted roof edge. The temporary strap held it flat. Near the freight door, however, a narrow stream began running down the brick from the cracked mortar above the lintel. That wasn't in the photographs, Mia said. It wasn't raining during the inspection. Is it getting inside? Possibly. They stayed under cover until the rain weakened. Then Luke carried a ladder to the side of the opening. Mia held it while he fixed a temporary sheet of flashing above the crack without disturbing the masonry. Water ran down Mia's sleeves. Her wet gloves slipped against the ladder rail. Keep both hands on it, Luke said. I have both hands on it. Then stop looking at the door. I'm watching the water. Watch me. Mia shifted her eyes upward. Luke secured the last fastener and climbed down. The water now passed over the temporary flashing and fell clear of the crack. Mia stepped toward the freight door. A dark line showed along the bottom panel, but there was no water coming from beneath it. She put her palm against the wood, cool, solid, and dry. Whatever stood inside had made it through another storm. By evening, her shoulders hurt and a purple mark had formed where the ladder rail pressed against her forearm. She changed into dry clothes in Luke's shop restroom, then drove to Dawn's house. Kelsey had placed 3 banker's boxes on the dining table. Tammy sat in Dawn's chair with her glasses low on her nose. "These are the property papers," she said. "Tax bills, insurance, service receipts. All from Depot Road, as many as we found." Mia opened the first box. The records went back about 20 years. They confirmed roof checks, gutter cleaning, masonry patching, and insurance payments. Luke's name appeared on several receipts, but none described interior work. The second box held older tax records and correspondence about offers Dawn had refused. The offers were for the building and land. None mentioned the wardrobe. The third contained general household papers. Mia searched every folder. There was no bill of sale. Tammy watched her reach the bottom of the last box. "I told you," she said. "You told me you didn't know where it was. I also told you Dawn kept things where she wanted them. Did she keep records at the warehouse?" "I don't know. Did you see the bill after she signed it?" "Not after that day." "What exactly did it look like?" "A purchase book." Mia stopped. "Not a loose paper?" "No, a large book with lined pages. The theater used it for purchases and sales." "Grandma took the whole book?" Tammy closed her eyes briefly, searching her memory. She took the book, a ring of small metal tags, and an inventory clipboard. "What happened to them?" "I assume she brought them home." Kelsey sat across from Mia. "But they're not here." "No," Mia said. "Then they could be inside." Tammy removed her glasses. They could also have been lost decades ago. Mia went through the boxes once more, slower this time. She found evidence that Dawn had spent money on the warehouse year after year. She found no explanation for why. The storm struck the house windows, and Kelsey glanced toward the dark yard. "This is what I'm talking about," she said. "You're about to spend $46,000 chasing a record that might not exist." Mia closed the last box. "I'm not paying for a record." "What are you paying for?" "The building. You were ready to walk away from it a week ago." "I hadn't seen it. That doesn't make it valuable." "No, but it changes what I'm responsible for." Tammy leaned forward. "Responsibility has limits. Grandma kept that roof drained for years. She repaired the vents. She protected the walls, and never used it. We don't know that. We know she never opened it." Mia thought of the cedar smell passing through the new screen. She thought of water running over the temporary flashing instead of through the crack. "Whatever she protected is still relying on that building," Mia said. Kelsey shook her head. "You don't know if anything survived. That's why I can't let the shell fail now." The room went quiet. Mia understood the change as she said it. Opening the door was no longer enough. If she spent all her money merely to look inside, she would be repeating the family's mistake in another form. She would be treating the warehouse as a container with one answer, useful or useless. Dawn had treated the building itself as part of the work. Mia stood and took photographs of the relevant records. "I'm signing the stabilization contracts tomorrow," Kelsey pushed back from the table. "You can't afford that. I can cover the deposits, and after that, I'll handle it. With what? I don't know yet." Tammy spoke more quietly. "Once you spend that money, the estate isn't paying you back." "I understand. And if the contents don't belong to you, the repairs don't change that." "I understand that too." Mia gathered her copies. Kelsey followed her to the side door. "You're using the savings Grandma always told you not to touch. She told me not to waste it. This could be a waste." "Yes." Kelsey hadn't expected agreement. She had expected Mia to pretend the risk wasn't real. Mia put her hand on the doorknob. "I'm still doing it." The next morning, the contractors sent final schedules. To finish within the city deadline, they needed deposits by 5 that afternoon. Mia logged into her savings account during lunch. She had built the balance over 7 years. It was the closest thing she had to a room nobody could ask her to leave. She approved the roof deposit first. The masonry deposit followed. Then she paid for the freight opening support, vent materials, equipment, and follow-up inspection. By the time the confirmations arrived, more than half her savings was committed. Her hands shook after she closed the banking screen. At Depot Road, she showed Luke the schedules. He read each page. "You paid them?" "Yes." "You're sure?" "No." He looked at her. Mia pointed to the work sequence he had written. I'm not just trying to get the door open anymore. What are you trying to do? Keep the place alive long enough to become whatever Dawn meant it to be. Luke picked up a pencil and moved the freight door work to the bottom of the schedule. Then he wrote Mia's name across the top. Below it, Luke added the city deadline and counted backward. Roof repairs start Monday, he said. Mason follows Wednesday. Freight opening gets braced after the mortar cures. How long does that take? Depends on the weather. Everything depends on the weather. Buildings have a way of making that clear. Mia took a second sheet of paper and divided it into 3 columns. Required, completed, paid. Luke watched her write. What's that for? So nobody can tell me later that they didn't know what I was doing. You planning to send it to your family? To the city, the insurance company, and the contractors. My family can ask me. That was the first part of her new strategy. She stopped trying to convince Tammy and Kelsey that the warehouse deserved time. They had the same facts she did. They simply wanted a different result. Mia spent the weekend preparing the lot. She removed the remaining loose vines, stacked usable bricks the mason found beneath the weeds, and photographed every wall before work began. Luke helped when he could, but he had customers waiting. Twice he left her outside while he worked on the walnut sideboard. Mia didn't take it personally. She was beginning to understand the difference between help and rescue. Luke had a business, deadlines, and an access problem tied to her property. He wasn't waiting around to become part of whatever Dawn had left unfinished. On Sunday afternoon, Mia brought him a 1-page agreement. Luke read it at his workbench. This says I can use the apron for deliveries with 1 day's notice. Yes. And either of us can end the arrangement with 30 days' notice. Yes. No payment. You keep the drive clear and you tell me if you see water or damage. He looked up. You wrote this? I used plain English and removed everything that sounded like I needed a courtroom. That may be the finest legal tradition. Is there a problem with it? No? He read it again. Dawn never put this in writing. She didn't need to. I do. Why? Because Kelsey was right about one thing. I make promises before I decide what they'll cost. Luke set down the page. And this is different? This tells both of us the cost. He signed it. Mia signed beneath him and made a copy in the small printer at the back of his shop. The next morning, the roofer's crew arrived before sunrise. Mia took time away from work to meet them. She had already arranged the materials along the north side, so Luke's drive remained open. The crew removed the damaged parapet cap in short sections. Beneath it, the top course of brick was weathered but stable. Near the northwest drain, they cut away a weakened section of roof deck about the size of a kitchen table. Mia stood below, while one worker lowered the damaged material in pieces. The wood was dark at the edges, but it wasn't black with long-term rot. Luke pressed a thumb into one piece. Recent damage. How recent? Years, not decades. That counts as recent now? For this building. The roofer showed Mia where older repairs surrounded the drain. Someone had replaced the membrane there more than once. Water had tried to enter, and each time, Dawn had paid to stop it. By late afternoon, the crew had installed new decking, corrected the slope near the drain, and fixed the metal cap. Then rain began. It was lighter than the storm before, but steady enough to test the work. Mia and Luke watched from the shop doorway as water moved across the roof and into the repaired drain. The downspout carried it cleanly to the channel. Nothing ran over the wall. Nothing pooled at the northwest corner. Mia took a short video and attached it to her city file. The result wasn't hidden inside the warehouse. It was right in front of her. The roof was doing its job again. On Wednesday, the mason began cutting out loose mortar by hand. He refused to use a power grinder near the older brick because it could damage the edges. Dawn would have approved of that, Luke said. Mia didn't ask how he knew. By then she knew too. They found 3 different kinds of mortar in the wall. The oldest was soft and pale. Later repairs were harder and gray. A small patch near the rear had been repaired with a mix close to the original. Luke touched the surface. Dawn made me redo that section. You did this? My first masonry repair for her. She taught you masonry too? She taught me when not to pretend I knew masonry. The professional mason overheard and gave a short laugh. Luke pointed to the pale patch. She made me remove the hard mix before it damaged the brick. Then she brought someone who showed me the right way. When was that? 2009? Mia looked at the patch. Dawn had been protecting the warehouse one joint at a time, while the family treated it as a sealed mistake. She hadn't abandoned it. She had chosen not to explain it. Mia no longer expected an explanation from anyone standing outside the door. Her job was to preserve the questions until the building could answer them itself. The masonry work took 6 days. During that time, Mia kept her regular work hours, came to Depot Road before work, and returned in the evenings to photograph progress. She ate dinner twice at Luke's workbench from a paper bag. The first time, he kept sanding while she ate. The second time, he shut off the dust collector and sat across from her with his own food. Neither of them called it dinner together. When the new mortar had set, the wall looked different without looking new. The repairs didn't draw bright lines around every crack. They sat quietly between the old bricks. Mia liked that. The city inspector returned for a progress check. She examined the roof invoices, walked the drainage path, and tested the repaired joints. "You're ahead of schedule," she said. "Is that an official compliment?" Mia asked. "It's an observation. Can I put it in the file? It'll be in my report." The inspector checked the replacement vent screens next. "These are good." Mia felt more pleased by those 3 words than she expected. She had installed half the screens herself. The inspector stopped beneath the freight opening. The crack above the lintel had been repaired, but the steel still needed support before the lock could be released. "Next phase is the opening frame," she said. "The contractor is scheduled. Once the temporary supports are installed, call me. If the frame remains stable, I'll approve controlled opening." Mia glanced at the chain. How controlled? Locksmith, contractor, property owner, and anyone needed to document the interior. Nobody crowds the doorway. Nobody goes under unsupported material. Can the door stay closed after the frame is braced? "Yes. I want it closed until we're ready." The inspector looked at her. "That's sensible." It was the first time an authority connected to the warehouse had described one of Mia's choices that way. The inspector updated the notice. Roof drainage, parapet, vegetation, vents, and most masonry items were marked corrected. More than half the exterior list was complete. Luke read the updated notice after the city truck left. "You got your practical win," he said. "We got it." He handed the notice back. "Your name's on the order, and your deliveries cross the apron. That's written down now." Mia taped the updated copy inside a clear sleeve beside the original. Anyone looking at the warehouse could see the work had moved from violation to correction. That afternoon, she called the insurance company and sent the report. The insurer agreed to continue basic property coverage during stabilization, provided the freight door remained secured and any opening was documented. One more problem had become manageable. Mia added it to the completed column. Then she emailed Tammy and Kelsey a short update. "Exterior stabilization is progressing. The city has approved the roof, drainage, vents, vegetation removal, and completed masonry areas. The freight opening will be supported next. I will notify you before any controlled opening. The property is not for sale. Please do not solicit or discuss offers on my behalf." She attached the corrected notice and nothing else. Kelsey called within 5 minutes. Mia let it ring. A message followed. "You can't shut us out when estate property may be inside." Mia didn't answer that either. She saved the message in the warehouse folder. Luke saw her put the phone away. "Problem? Not one I can fix today. That's progress." They spent the rest of the afternoon measuring space for the temporary supports. The contractor needed room on both sides of the freight door, so Mia and Luke cleared the last weeds from the front wall. Beneath one patch of growth, Mia found a rusted metal bracket bolted to the brick. "What was this?" she asked. Luke examined the spacing. "Sign holder, maybe." They cleared beneath it and found a second bracket. A narrow outline remained between them, protected from sunlight by whatever had once hung there. Mia measured the space. At home, she searched digitized photographs from the regional theater. Most showed actors on stage, opening nights and crowded lobbies. She kept the search narrow. She wasn't trying to prove ownership through old pictures. She wanted to understand what the building had served. One photograph showed a delivery truck parked at Depot Road. Behind it, the warehouse wall was free of vines. A wooden sign hung between the metal brackets. Costume rentals and alterations. Mia enlarged the image. The date beneath it was from the late 1970s, before Dawn bought the wardrobe. The building hadn't only stored costumes. People had come there to borrow, return, fit, and repair them. She sent the photograph to Luke. He called instead of replying. "So, it was a working collection," he said. It was meant to leave the building and come back, before Dawn bought it. Yes. You thinking she kept that going? I don't know. But you're thinking something. Mia looked at the photograph again. Women stood near the freight door holding garment bags. A rolling rack waited on the apron, where Luke's sideboard had been unloaded. I'm thinking storage may have been the least important thing the place did. The next morning, Mia printed the photograph and added it to the work folder. When she arrived at Depot Road, Kelsey and Tammy were waiting beside the freight door. Tammy held a copy of Mia's email. Kelsey held the old theater photograph. You said you weren't discussing offers, Mia said. We're not here about an offer, Tammy replied. Kelsey raised the photograph. We're here because you're making plans for property you can't prove belongs to you. Mia looked from the photograph to Tammy. The building was used for rentals before Grandma bought the wardrobe. That's exactly the concern, Tammy said. What concern? That the building and the costumes may not have been owned by the same person. You watched Grandma buy them. I watched her sign a purchase book and hand over a bank check. Then, what are we arguing about? The purchase record is missing. Kelsey held out a folded letter. Mia didn't take it. What is that? Notice from the estate, Tammy said. It states that unidentified personal property found inside the building can't be removed, sold, promised, or altered until ownership is documented. The estate gave me the warehouse and its contents. If Dawn owned the contents, you know she did. I know what I witnessed. I can't produce the record. Mia looked at the freight door. So, you think the theater still owns costumes from a company that closed 48 years ago? I didn't say that. What do you think happened? Tammy's patience thinned. I think I have a duty to close the estate properly. No, you have a deadline you gave yourself, and Kelsey has a house title waiting on that closing. Kelsey stepped forward. You keep saying that like I'm doing something wrong. You're making my property part of your refinance. I'm trying to prevent a dispute. You brought one to my door. Luke came around the corner carrying a case of drill bits. He stopped when he saw the three women. Tammy handed him a copy of the letter. This affects your work, she said. Luke didn't take it. Mia hired the contractor. You're coordinating access. I'm helping with the schedule. Then you need to know the estate disputes her right to control anything inside. Luke looked at Mia. Is that what the letter says? I haven't read it. Kelsey held it out again. This time, Mia took it. The wording was careful. Tammy wasn't claiming the wardrobe for herself or Kelsey. She was reserving the estate's right to identify and inventory anything that might not have passed with the real property. The letter also required written notice before the freight door was opened. Mia reached the final paragraph. You sent this to the contractor? And the insurer, Tammy said. Why? Because you told us not to discuss the warehouse. I told you not to solicit offers. You also said we had to ask for information. That doesn't give you the right to interfere with repairs. We didn't stop repairs. Luke held out his hand. Mia gave him the letter. He read it once. The freight opening contractor may stop, he said. He has a signed contract. He also has an insurance clause about ownership disputes and controlled property. Kelsey folded her arms. Then he's being responsible. Mia looked at her. Did you read my contract? No. Then how did you know there might be a clause? I didn't, Tammy answered instead. I told the contractor there was a dispute. He decided what to do with that information. Mia felt the full shape of the move. Tammy hadn't needed a lawsuit. She hadn't needed to prove the costumes belonged to the residual estate. She only had to raise enough doubt that people carrying insurance would slow down. The city deadline would keep moving while the work stopped. Why didn't you talk to me first? Mia asked. We're talking now, Tammy said. After you sent letters, you made it clear you weren't asking permission. It's my building, and I'm executor of Dawn's estate. Luke folded the letter. The support work is on the building. Whatever is inside doesn't change who owns the wall. I agree, Tammy said. The contractor may not. Mia called from the apron. The contractor answered after several rings. He confirmed that the masonry and framework could continue, but controlled opening was now on hold. His insurer wanted an agreement identifying who would be present, who could authorize movement of contents, and who accepted responsibility for any claim arising from the opening. We weren't planning to move anything, Mia said. That needs to be in writing. When can you send the agreement? I'll have the office draft it. And my scheduled date. We released it this morning. Mia closed her eyes. You released it? We couldn't hold the crew with the ownership issue unresolved. I paid a deposit. It applies to the support work. The opening slot was a separate scheduling fee. Do I get that back? No. The next available controlled opening date was almost 3 weeks later. By then, she would be close to the point where another delay threatened the city deadline. Mia asked him to reserve it. I need the signed conditions and the additional scheduling payment first. How long will you hold it? Until tomorrow afternoon. She ended the call. Luke handed back the letter. How bad? I lost the opening date and the fee. Tammy's face changed. I didn't know they would charge you. You didn't ask. I was protecting the estate. You were protecting Kelsey's closing. Kelsey looked toward the road. That isn't fair. It's true. No, it's what you've decided about me. You told strangers the family might sell my warehouse. Because I thought selling could help you. You didn't ask what help looked like. Kelsey's voice rose. You don't ask either. You just decide you're the only one who cared about Grandma because you ran errands. Mia went still. Luke looked down at the drill case. Tammy said, Kelsey. No, Kelsey continued. She keeps saying she did the work. Fine, she did. But she also made sure everybody knew she was doing it. Mia stared at her sister. When? Every time you corrected me, every time you knew where something was and I didn't. You called me to ask. I called because you acted like I couldn't do anything right. I never said that. You didn't have to. The words were not entirely fair. They were not entirely false either. Mia had built her place in the family around being the person who remembered. She had taken pride in Kelsey's dependence, even while resenting it. Every missing key had proved Mia mattered. Every unfinished job had given her a reason to stay. Now that Mia had stopped filling those gaps, Kelsey experienced it as punishment. Mia sat on the low concrete edge beside the apron. She was too angry to answer carefully, and too tired to answer any other way. Tammy spoke first. We need a practical solution. Mia looked up. What do you want? Everyone present when the door opens. A complete photographic inventory before anything is moved. No sales, rental agreements, transfers, or removal until ownership is established. You think I'm going to carry racks of costumes out while nobody's looking? I'm stating conditions for my property, for disputed contents, Kelsey added. And if there's no proof Grandma owned them, they stay untouched until we know what happens next. What happens to them while you figure that out? They remain inside, in a building I paid to repair. Kelsey didn't answer. Mia understood the dilemma. If she refused their conditions, the contractor might not return before the code deadline. If she accepted, Tammy and Kelsey would enter the moment Dawn had kept private for 48 years. They would photograph every object, question every move, and treat the contents as a pool of value before anyone knew their condition. Mia could keep them outside and risk the building, or she could preserve the building and surrender control of the discovery. Luke sat beside her, leaving space between them. Can the conditions protect the collection too? He asked. Tammy looked at him. What do you mean? No touching without Mia's approval. No flash photography if textiles are exposed. No food or drinks. No separating items from labels. Nobody opens boxes until the interior is checked for hazards. Kelsey said, Why Mia's approval? Because she owns the building and will be responsible for anything damaged inside it. Tammy considered that. Mia looked at Luke. Anything else? Limit the first entry to us four and the locksmith. We document where things are. If something needs professional handling, we leave it. Tammy nodded. That's reasonable. Kelsey wasn't satisfied. What about an inventory person? We don't know whether there's anything to inventory, Mia said. That's the point. No. The first point is entering safely. Mia stood. I'll agree to notice. Witnesses, photographs, and no removal. I'll agree that nothing gets sold or promised until ownership is documented. Tammy's shoulders lowered slightly. Mia continued, but you both agree that I control physical access. Nobody comes in without me. Nobody touches anything unless I approve it. If the building needs work after opening, preservation comes before argument. Kelsey looked at Tammy. Tammy said, I can agree to that as executor. I'm not asking only the executor. Kelsey met Mia's eyes. What if we find something that belongs to the estate? Then we document it. And you won't hide anything? Mia's anger returned. If you think I'm a thief, don't come. I didn't say that. You came close. Tammy stepped between them. Enough. Kelsey, agree or don't? Kelsey looked at the freight door. She wanted to be inside when it opened. She wouldn't admit how much the thought of Mia entering first bothered her. For most of their lives, Kelsey had been first. She left home first, earned more first, and received the house. The warehouse had seemed like the one place where being first didn't matter. Now it did. "I agree," she said. Mia took the letter and turned it over. "Luke, can I use your printer?" "Yes." She drafted the opening conditions in plain language, using Tammy's letter as a starting point. No item would leave. No one would enter without Mia. The first entry would be limited to Mia, Luke, Kelsey, Tammy, and the locksmith. Photographs would document locations, not advertise discoveries. Any later inspection would be arranged through Mia. Tammy read it carefully. Kelsey read it twice. They all signed. Mia sent the agreement to the contractor and insurer. The contractor restored the later opening date after she paid the additional scheduling charge. The loss remained. So did the delay. After Tammy and Kelsey left, Mia checked her account. The added fee came from money she had kept aside for her car. If the car needed work now, she would have to use credit or ask for help. She put the phone away. Luke stood beneath the lintel with a tape measure. You could still stop. And do what? Finish the exterior order. Keep the door locked. Wait until the estate closes. That could take months. Yes. And the inside stays unexamined through another season. Yes. Mia looked at the new mortar, the repaired roof edge, and the freight door still carrying Dawn's chain. The devise gave her the warehouse and its contents. That language was her only claim to anything behind the door, and even that depended on Dawn having owned what she gave. Until they found the purchase record, Mia would bear the cost, while everyone else reserved the right to question the result. She picked up the contractor's support plan. "Install the braces," she said. Luke opened the drill case. Mia held the first steel support in place while he marked the holes. The contractor arrived the following morning and checked every mark before drilling. The supports were heavy steel posts with adjustable heads. 2 stood outside the freight opening. 2 more would go just inside after the door moved, if the floor proved stable. Until then, a horizontal beam spread the weight beneath the lintel. Mia watched the first post tighten against the beam. The contractor checked it with a level, then struck it lightly with a rubber mallet. The sound traveled through the steel and stopped. "No movement," he said. Luke checked the second post from the opposite side. For the next 2 days, the contractor repaired the ends of the lintel and reinforced the frame without touching the chain. Mia photographed the work at each stage. When the city inspector returned, she examined the fasteners, the steel, and the repaired brick. She placed a small measuring gauge across the crack above the opening. The line hadn't widened. "Support is holding," she said. "Can the door be opened?" Mia asked. For controlled inspection, yes. The inspector updated the order on her tablet. "Opening doesn't clear the building for occupancy," she said. "Interior conditions still have to be documented." "I understand. If you find standing water, active mold, unstable racks, damaged electrical equipment, or anything hanging from the roof, you come back out. What if the floor is blocked? Don't climb over anything, take photographs, and stop." The inspector looked at the signed opening conditions Mia had included in the file. "You have an inventory dispute?" "A family question. That isn't my area. My approval covers the structure and safe entry conditions. It doesn't decide who owns what. I know. The door can move after the locksmith releases the lock. The contractor needs to be present. Keep everyone behind the marked line until he checks the threshold and frame." The city had removed one uncertainty and left the important one exactly where it belonged. Mia thanked her. The inspector attached a new notice beside the old one. "Controlled opening approved. Interior inspection pending." After she left, the locksmith came to examine the lock. He knelt beside it with a small flashlight, cleaned dirt from the keyway, and tested the body without forcing it. "Old liver lock," he said. "Better made than most new ones." "Can you open it without cutting?" Mia asked. "Probably." Luke smiled at the word. The locksmith looked up. "You want the lock saved?" "Yes." "Then I work slowly. If the internal levers are frozen, I may have to remove the chain another way. Can it be locked again afterward, if the lock's sound?" He put a small drop of lubricant into the keyway, then wiped the outer case clean. "I'll leave that overnight," he said. "Don't put anything else in it. No oil, no powder, no household tricks." Mia promised. They set the opening for the following Wednesday morning. Tammy and Kelsey both confirmed in writing that they would attend. Mia should have felt relieved. Instead, the clear date made every unresolved question harder to ignore. She called Tammy and asked to review the original will before the opening. "You have a copy," Tammy said. "I want the signed original and the recorded transfer in the same room. For what purpose?" So nobody argues about the wording while the door is open. Tammy agreed to meet at Dawn's house that evening. Kelsey opened the side door when Mia arrived. She didn't invite her in with the old casual wave. She stepped aside and waited until Mia crossed the threshold. The change was small, but it made the house feel different. Tammy had placed the will, the recorded devise, and the signed opening conditions on the dining table. Dawn's coffee cup was no longer behind the glass cabinet door. Mia noticed the empty space. She didn't ask where it was. Tammy opened the will to the marked page. "Read it," Mia said. "You've read it. I want all of us to hear the same words." Tammy looked irritated, but she read the clause aloud. Dawn devised the property at 214 Depot Road to Mia, including the warehouse structure and all contents located within it at the time of Dawn's death. Tammy stopped. "What does the recorded transfer say?" Mia asked. Tammy opened the second document. It used the same description. Kelsey sat across from Mia with her hands clasped. "So, fixtures and normal building contents," she said. "That isn't what it says," Mia replied. "It doesn't specifically say costumes. It says all contents." Tammy removed her glasses and placed them on the table. Mia turned to her. "If Grandma owned the wardrobe when she died, does it pass to me under this clause?" Tammy didn't answer immediately. Kelsey looked at her. Aunt Tammy's duty as executor was inconvenient in that moment. She wanted a settlement, but the words didn't give her room to create one by pretending they were vague. "Yes," she said. "If Dawn owned the wardrobe, it passes under the specific devise. Not through the residual estate? No." Kelsey's fingers separated. Mia kept her eyes on Tammy. "So, the unresolved question is whether Grandma owned what's inside." "Yes." "And the purchase record would answer that. If it is there, and if it covers the items we find, that was fair." Mia took a photograph of the clause, then another of the recorded transfer. Kelsey stood and walked to the kitchen. "You knew that was what it meant," Mia said. Kelsey turned at the counter. "I knew that was your position. It's not only my position now. No. Now Aunt Tammy has said it too." Tammy put her glasses back on. "That doesn't prove ownership." "I know." "Then we should discuss a settlement before the opening." Mia sat back. "What settlement?" "If the wardrobe has value, the estate accepts the devised language and you agree to share the net value with Kelsey. In return, Kelsey and I withdraw any question about ownership. You can't withdraw a fact. We can agree not to dispute it. You just said the contents passed to me if Grandma owned them. And you don't have the purchase record, so I should give up part of something before we know whether it survived." Kelsey came back to the table. "You could also give up part of a pile of ruined fabric. Then why do you want it?" "I want this finished. You want your refinance." "Yes," Kelsey said, "I do." The honesty took some heat out of the room. She continued, "I have debts. The house gives me a way to handle them. I don't want an estate dispute tied to the title for another year. I haven't challenged your house. You haven't signed the release. The release covers more than the house. Then we can change it. You sign away any claim to the house and residual estate. We agree you can keep whatever's inside the warehouse." Mia looked at Tammy. "Can you promise that if Grandma didn't own it?" "No," Tammy said. "Then the settlement is just all of us agreeing not to ask the question." Tammy folded her hands. Sometimes families settle uncertainty by making the person with less information pay for peace. Kelsey pulled out a chair and sat down. "What do you want, Mia?" "I want the opening documented. I want the purchase record found if it's there. I want the ownership decided by what Dawn actually did. And if she didn't leave proof, then we deal with that." Kelsey looked tired. "You could make trouble for the house if you wanted to." The sentence was quiet. Mia understood what Kelsey was offering. If Mia promised not to touch the house, Kelsey would stop pressing the contents claim. Each sister would keep the visible thing beside her, and nobody would examine whether the division had been lawful or fair. It would be easy. Mia could also use Kelsey's fear. She could refuse every limited release, delay the estate, and make the refinance impossible until Kelsey agreed to any terms Mia wanted. That would give Mia power. It would also make the house another hostage in a family argument. I don't want your house, Mia said. Kelsey studied her. I never wanted it, Mia continued. I'm not going to threaten your home to protect mine. This isn't your home. Not yet. Tammy glanced at her, then toward the window, as if Depot Road might be visible from there. Mia placed a separate one-page release on the table. She had prepared it that afternoon. It stated that she made no claim against Dawn's house and wouldn't interfere with Kelsey's title or refinancing. It did not release Mia's interest in the remaining estate or change the warehouse devise. Kelsey read it. You'll sign this? Yes. Without a settlement? Yes. Why? Because the house is yours. The warehouse question doesn't change that. Kelsey looked at Tammy. Tammy read the page and nodded. It's limited, but it's valid for the house. Mia signed. The pen made a light scratching sound across the paper. Kelsey's relief was immediate. She covered it by reading the release again. Mia had removed the easiest pressure she could have used. Kelsey no longer needed to fear losing the house. She also no longer had a practical reason to soften her claim about the warehouse. The relationship would have to stand without mutual threats. Tammy put the signed release into her folder. Wednesday, she said. We follow the entry conditions exactly. Mia nodded. Before leaving, she asked one more question. The purchase book. Tell me everything you remember about it. Tammy closed her eyes. It had a dark red cloth cover, she said. About this wide. She held her hands apart. The theater name was stamped on the front. There were columns for item, date, amount, and authorization. Dawn's purchase was near the back. Did the sale list individual costumes? There was a separate inventory. The book referenced inventory marks. What kind of marks? Small metal tags, letters and numbers. And your signature, below Dawn's, under a witness line. You're sure? Yes, Kelsey asked. Would you recognize it? Tammy opened her eyes. I would recognize my own signature. Mia wrote down the description. A dark red purchase book. Theater stamp. Sale near the back. Inventory marks. Tammy's witness signature. Useful, specific, and still locked inside. On Tuesday evening, Mia and Luke cleared the apron for the opening. They swept dust from the threshold, marked the safety line with bright tape, and placed clean plastic covers over 2 work tables in case the locksmith needed space. Mia taped the signed entry conditions beside the city notice. Then she put the certified devise into a waterproof folder. Behind it, she placed Tammy's description of the purchase book and the limited release protecting Kelsey's house. The folder held no complete answer. It held the rule they had all agreed to follow when the answer appeared. Mia set it on the clean work table beside the freight door and closed the cover. At 8:45 the next morning, Luke placed his metal cup on the work table and checked the steel supports again. The locksmith arrived 5 minutes later. Tammy and Kelsey came together. Kelsey carried her phone and a folder. Tammy carried nothing. Before anyone approached the chain, Mia read the entry conditions aloud. Each person confirmed. Kelsey held up her phone. The history group posted about today. What did they say? Mia asked. Kelsey turned the screen toward her. Mia looked at Kelsey. Did you tell them about the will? I told one person. I didn't write that, then asked them to remove it. Why? It's true. It's family business. It stopped being private when you uncovered the sign. Tammy stepped between them. We're here to document the contents. Kelsey lowered the phone. If there are contents. You think it's empty? Mia asked. I think anything useful was probably removed years ago. Anything left has been sitting without heat or air conditioning for 48 years. And if it survived, then we still don't know whose it is. Tammy looked at the locksmith. Can we proceed? He knelt at the lock and inserted 2 narrow tools into the keyway. Nobody spoke. The first attempt produced a small internal click, then nothing. He adjusted one tool and worked again. Rust dust fell from the bottom of the lock. After several minutes, he stopped and cleaned the keyway. Frozen? Mia asked, stubborn. He changed tools. The next click was louder. The square iron shackle lifted less than an inch. The locksmith smiled. There it is. He opened the original lock without cutting it. Luke caught the chain before it struck the door. Together, he and the contractor removed it from the steel handles and laid it on a padded cloth. The contractor checked the support beam, then pulled the door outward 6 inches. Cold air passed through the opening. It smelled of cedar, dust, and old cloth. No rot, no standing water. The contractor shone a work light across the threshold. The concrete floor was clear. A line of dirt marked where the door had rested, but the frame stayed square. He opened it another foot. Mia saw the first garment rack. A stained cotton cover hung over it. Water had discolored one corner, and moth damage showed along the exposed edge. Kelsey whispered, "I told you." Mia didn't answer. The contractor placed the two interior supports, checked the ceiling, and approved their entry. Mia went first. Her shoes crossed the threshold where Dawn's had last crossed decades earlier. The front rows showed the building's cost. Several cotton covers had split. A wool coat near the outer wall had lost most of one sleeve. Water stains marked the hems of long dresses closest to the damaged roof drain. Then, Mia's light reached deeper. Cedar panels lined the walls. Narrow aisles divided long rows of rolling racks. Most garments wore unbleached covers tied beneath the hangers. Metal inventory tags hung from cotton tape. Luke moved beside her and lifted one cover only far enough to see the fabric beneath. Blue silk caught the light. He let the cover fall. "Don't touch anything else yet," Mia said. Kelsey had stopped near the first aisle. Her phone remained lowered. Tammy walked to a rack marked with a metal letter and number. She touched the tag, not the garment. "These are the inventory marks," she said. Mia followed the central aisle. The deeper rows were dry. Complete groups had been stored together. Jackets, skirts, waistcoats, hats, gloves, and label boxes sat beneath the same rack numbers. One row held military-style stage uniforms. Another held full evening ensembles. Farther back, garment covers protected embroidered coats and long, formal dresses with matching accessories boxed above them. The outer rows had absorbed decades of exposure. The protected rows had survived because Dawn kept the shell intact. At the rear, a wooden stair rose to an upper workroom. Beside it stood an open work table with a ledger lying beneath a canvas cover. Mia stopped. The book had a dark red cloth binding. Rutherford Regional Theater was stamped across the front. Tammy came closer, but didn't touch it. "That's the purchase book." Mia put on clean gloves before lifting the cover. Near the back, one page carried a dated entry for the complete wardrobe collection, storage fittings, inventory, and associated equipment. Dawn's name appeared below it. Under her signature was a witness line. Tammy Fuller had signed there. Tammy lowered herself into the work table chair. "That's mine," she said. A folded inventory rested in the pocket inside the back cover. Its letters and numbers matched the rack tags surrounding them. Kelsey read over Mia's shoulder. Below the sale entry, Dawn had written several lines in her blocky hand. The wardrobe was to remain together. Damaged pieces could be repaired or used for study. Complete ensembles were to earn their care through rental. The upper room would serve for fitting and repair. The final line was underlined once. A working collection, not a sealed museum. Mia read it without speaking. Dawn had closed the warehouse, but she hadn't meant the closure to be its final purpose. She had preserved the collection until someone could return it to work. 3 days later, Brian Fisher arrived from Nashville. Mia had contacted several established costume rental businesses and sent only photographs that showed rack organization, outer damage, and inventory marks. Brian, an acquisitions director, asked to inspect directly. At 48, he moved through the aisles with the patience of someone who knew that old fabric punished hurried hands. He examined the damaged front rows first. "These took the exposure," he said. "That's what we thought," Mia replied. "They may still supply trim, patterns, and repair fabric. Don't discard them." He inspected deeper rows with Luke assisting. He matched complete ensembles to the inventory and checked seams, linings, closures, and labels. Kelsey and Tammy attended under the same conditions. After 2 hours, Brian returned to the work table. "How much is usable?" Mia asked. "Enough to operate. More after conservation." "Operate how?" "Period rentals. Theater, independent film, university productions, photography. Complete ensembles matter because customers don't want to build a look from 6 suppliers." He placed a written proposal on the table. His company would guarantee $240,000 across a 3-year agreement. Mia would stabilize the collection, maintain the inventory, and operate rentals from the warehouse. His company would receive scheduled access and first consideration on listed ensembles. Kelsey read the amount twice. Tammy asked, "That money is for the costumes?" "For access to a managed rental collection," Brian said, "not a purchase." "And if the ownership is disputed?" Tammy asked. "Then there's no agreement." Kelsey looked at Mia. "You can't sign this yet." "I know. If the collection belongs to the estate, that offer belongs to the estate. Brian closed his sample case. I don't decide ownership. He gave Mia the card of an independent textile conservator and left the proposal with her. Mia called Jack Wolf that afternoon. Jack came the following Monday. He was 63 and carried 2 cases, a magnifier, clean supports, fiber samples, and a small light. He performed one job. Mia, Luke, Kelsey, and Tammy watched while he tested representative fibers from damaged and protected rows. He examined construction, aging, dyes, metal tags, storage conditions, and the purchase book. He matched the inventory marks in the book to tags on the racks. He checked ink, paper, binding, and the natural wear around the sale page. Nothing suggested the record had been added later. Finally, he placed the purchase book in front of Tammy. Is that your signature? He asked. Yes. Did you sign it on the date shown? Yes. What did you witness? My mother purchased the theater wardrobe and inventory stored in this building. Were the marked racks included? Yes. Jack looked at Mia's certified devise, then at the ledger. The textile dates are consistent with the theater inventory. The storage sequence is consistent with the purchase record. The tags match the listed groups. I find no break in the documented ownership chain. Kelsey stood very still. Tammy looked older than she had at the dining table. Jack continued. Dawn Fuller purchased the wardrobe as a complete collection. Her signed record remained with that collection. The will specifically devised this building and all contents to Mia Frazier. He closed his case. That is my finding. No one had produced a second deed, hidden account, or later promise. The answer came from the one chain Dawn had left intact. She bought the wardrobe. Tammy witnessed it. The purchase book stayed with the marked inventory. Dawn then devised the warehouse and everything inside it to Mia. Kelsey sat down beside the work table. So it's hers, she said. Tammy looked at her own signature one last time. Yes, she replied. It's hers. Jack returned the purchase book to its padded support. I'll send my written report tomorrow, he said. Until then, keep the book flat, dry, and out of direct light. Mia nodded. He packed his testing materials, washed his hands in Luke's shop, and left. The 4 of them remained around the work table. Kelsey looked at Brian's proposal. $240,000 is a lot of money. It's 3 years of work, Mia said. I know. No, you know the total. You haven't read the duties. Kelsey pulled the proposal closer. The agreement required cataloging, conservation, secure access, insurance, cleaning protocols, booking records, and regular availability. Payments were tied to operating milestones. Mia couldn't take the money and leave the racks where they stood. Kelsey turned several pages. I didn't understand that, she said. You didn't ask? No. It was the first answer Kelsey gave without defending herself. Tammy remained beside the purchase book. I need to withdraw the estate notice, she said. Yes, Mia replied. I'll send it to the insurer and contractor today, and confirm that the contents passed under the devise. Tammy looked at her. Jack's report won't arrive until tomorrow. Then send it tomorrow. I can send a preliminary correction now. Do that. Tammy took out her phone and began writing. Kelsey watched her. Does that finish probate? It removes this dispute, Tammy said. There are still closing tasks. But the house release stands? Yes. Mia didn't interrupt. She had already given Kelsey that security. The warehouse didn't require her sister's home as payment. Tammy finished the message and handed the phone to Mia before sending it. The draft withdrew the reservation concerning the warehouse contents. It stated that Dawn's purchase record had been located, the inventory marks had been matched, and the specific devise controlled. Mia read it once. Send it. Tammy did. Then she opened her purse and removed a checkbook. What was the scheduling fee you lost? Mia told her. Tammy wrote the amount. The estate isn't responsible for that, Mia said. I know. Then what is this? I sent the notice without discussing the contractor's insurance terms with you. I caused the cancellation. You were acting as executor. I was also rushing you because I wanted the estate finished. Tammy tore out the check and placed it on the table. Mia didn't pick it up. I'm not buying forgiveness, Tammy said. Good, because it isn't for sale. I'm paying a cost I caused. That was different. Mia took the check and put it in the folder with the contractor receipts. Thank you. Tammy nodded. She didn't apologize again. She had never been comfortable with apologies, and probably never would be. Instead, She went to the freight door and began comparing the damaged outer racks to the inventory list. "Those need covers before the next rain," she said. "The roof doesn't leak now," Luke replied. "Then before the dust gets into them." It wasn't reconciliation. It was Tammy noticing a duty and naming it. Mia allowed that much. Kelsey was still reading Brian's agreement. "Do I need to sign anything?" she asked. "Not for the warehouse," Mia said. "I mean something saying I don't claim the costumes. That would help?" Kelsey looked toward the rows. "If I sign, you won't come back later and say I tried to steal them?" Mia felt the old temptation to soften the answer for her. "You tried to put them in the residual estate after the warehouse started attracting interest. I thought that might be where they belonged. You kept pushing after Aunt Tammy admitted the will language, because the purchase record was missing. And now, it isn't." Kelsey closed the proposal. "I was wrong about the ownership." "That's true. I was also worried you'd spend everything and find nothing." That was true too. Kelsey waited for Mia to make the two things cancel each other. Mia didn't. "You could have been worried without advertising the property," she said. "You could have asked before contacting the contractor. You could have trusted me to handle one thing without turning it into a problem for your house." Kelsey's face tightened. "You didn't trust me either." "No." The answer hurt both of them. Kelsey looked down at her phone. The history group caption was still open. She typed a message asking the administrator to remove the family wording and stop sharing Mia's property details. Then she posted a correction under the original photograph. The warehouse and collection were specifically left to Mia. "The family isn't accepting offers," she showed Mia before posting it. "Is this accurate?" "Yes," Kelsey posted it. That action didn't restore trust. It stopped one piece of harm she had helped create. Tammy drafted a separate acknowledgement that neither she nor Kelsey claimed an estate interest in the warehouse contents after authentication. Kelsey read it, changed one sentence so it didn't suggest fraud, and signed. Then she held out the pen to Tammy. Tammy signed too. Mia placed the page behind Jack's preliminary notes. "Can we come back?" Kelsey asked. "Not without arranging it. I'm your sister. That doesn't replace the entry rules." Kelsey looked as if she might argue. Then she glanced at the fragile silk visible beneath one cover. "All right," she said. Tammy touched the edge of the work table. "I'd like to help identify what I remember. You can do that with me present, I understand." The boundary remained. Mia didn't want Tammy and Kelsey banished. She wanted them to stop treating access as something family rank gave them automatically. 2 days later, Brian returned to review the authenticated record and discuss his proposal. This time, he sat across from Mia in Luke's shop, because the warehouse work table was being prepared for textile handling. Luke remained in his own work area. He could hear them, but he didn't join the negotiation. Mia had marked 6 sections of the agreement. "The collection stays here," she said. "That's the operating model," Brian replied. "No transfer to your Nashville facility. Only individual rentals under written booking. Damaged pieces don't leave until they're stabilized." "Agreed. I choose the local trainees. You choose staff. We require training records. The first payment needs to cover environmental monitoring and catalog supplies before rentals begin." Brian adjusted the schedule so the first operating payment followed installation and initial inventory, not the first rental. Mia read the change. "What happens if less of the collection is usable than you expect? The guarantee stands if you maintain the minimum catalog listed here. And if conservation takes longer, we can adjust delivery dates, not the 3-year total, provided you document progress." Brian wasn't offering charity. His company needed reliable access to complete period ensembles that would cost far more to reproduce. Mia needed income and a booking network. The agreement worked because each side had something practical the other needed. Mia signed. Brian signed beneath her. He left with a copy of the authenticated inventory and no costumes. The first payment wouldn't arrive immediately. Mia still had contractor bills. Her savings account remained painfully low. She kept her regular job and spent evenings building the catalog. The guaranteed amount removed the danger of losing the warehouse for lack of income. It did not remove the work. Mia found Luke behind his shop fitting the restored drawers into the walnut sideboard. "I signed with Brian," she said. Luke slid one drawer closed. It moved without a sound. "You happy with the terms?" "I changed 6 of them. That wasn't my question." "Yes, I'm happy." "What happens next?" "I need someone to manage the remaining building restoration. You have contractors. I need someone who understands what Dawn preserved and won't replace every old surface because new materials are easier. Luke wiped his hands on a cloth. You asking me? I'm offering you paid work. What scope? Cedar racks, work tables, stair repair, upper room floors, ventilation housings, and anything else made of wood. You coordinate with the textile work, but don't perform it. Good. I'm not a textile conservator. I noticed. How long? Initial restoration, then maintenance under a separate agreement. Luke leaned against the sideboard. And the loading access? Stays separate. Good. You keep your shop. I plan to. So did I. He smiled. They wrote the scope at his workbench, just as they had written the apron agreement. Luke added limits around textile handling. Mia added a schedule that kept his customer work from being swallowed by the warehouse. When they finished, she named the amount she could pay from the first operating installment. Luke didn't lower it out of friendship. He accepted it because it was fair. Work began the next Monday. Mia ordered clean garment covers, archival tags, rolling rack parts, and environmental monitors. Luke repaired the first cedar rack in place. Tammy returned by appointment and identified several theater productions attached to the inventory numbers. Kelsey didn't come. She sent one message asking whether Mia had found Dawn's coffee cup in the warehouse papers by mistake. Mia replied that she hadn't. An hour later, Kelsey arrived at the apron but stayed outside the marked work area. She carried a small cardboard box. I found something that belongs here, she said. Inside was Dawn's coffee cup, wrapped in the yellow note that had once said, "Keep with house." Kelsey had crossed out the last two words. Mia took the box. This doesn't fix everything, Kelsey said. I know. I don't know how to fix everything. Then don't start with everything. Kelsey nodded. She didn't ask to enter. Mia set the cup on the clean shelf beside the work schedule, then returned to Luke at the first cedar rack. The first rack took Luke 3 days. He removed one broken wheel, repaired 2 split cedar rails, and cleaned the old joints without stripping away the inventory marks. Mia replaced the cotton ties and made a condition card for every garment before it returned. They worked slowly because speed created mistakes. Some pieces from the outer rows couldn't be saved as complete costumes. Water had weakened the fabric beyond safe wear. Moths had eaten through shoulders and cuffs. Mia recorded each loss, then stored useful trim, buttons, patterns, and sound sections of cloth for future repairs. Nothing was thrown away simply because it couldn't be rented. The deeper rows required less repair, but more organization. Mia and Luke moved through one numbered section at a time. A rack never moved without its inventory page. A hat box never left the shelf without a temporary marker holding its place. Tammy came every Thursday afternoon. At first, she sat at the work table and tried to direct the order. You should start with the formal gowns, she said. Those were always requested. We're following rack condition, Mia replied. The gowns are in better shape. That's why they can wait. Tammy started to argue, then looked at the damaged coat laid across the padded table. What do you need me to do? Mia gave her a stack of copied theater programs. Match production names to the inventory numbers you recognize. Tammy worked for 2 hours without touching a garment. The following Thursday, she arrived with pencils, reading glasses, and a packed lunch. She asked which section needed her before choosing a chair. That was the first test. The second came when she found a formal jacket she remembered Dawn purchasing separately from the main wardrobe. This one isn't listed in the original inventory, Tammy said. Mia examined the metal tag. It carried Dawn's later numbering system, not the theater's. Then we document it as a later addition. You could just put it with the original group. No, the record needs to show what we know. Tammy nodded. She didn't ask Mia to make the truth cleaner for probate or easier for Brian's company. She wrote later addition on the condition card and signed her initials beneath it. Kelsey stayed away for almost a month. Then she called instead of arriving without notice. Can I come Saturday? She asked. What for? I want to see the work. 10 in the morning, clean clothes, no food inside. I remember the rules. She came at 10. Mia met her at the freight door. The old chain and lock now hung on the interior wall, cleaned and preserved. A modern security system protected the entrance, but the original lock remained part of the building. Kelsey stopped beside Dawn's purchase book, which was stored in a fitted box on the work table. I thought that would go to an archive, she said. It belongs with the collection. Is it safe here? Temperature monitor, humidity monitor, fire protection, and a waterproof case if we need to move it. Kelsey walked the first aisle. Most outer racks had new covers. Small cards showed whether each piece was ready, under repair, or restricted to study. "This looks like a real business," she said. "It is one." Kelsey winced slightly. Mia had heard judgment in the sentence, though Kelsey hadn't meant it that way. "I didn't mean I thought it was fake. You thought it was ruined." "Yes. And when it wasn't, you thought it should be shared." "Yes." Kelsey looked at the floor. "I'm not asking you to forget that." "Good." They continued to the rear work tables. Mia showed her how to copy inventory numbers into the digital catalog. Kelsey entered 6 records, then stopped when she found a tag she couldn't read. She didn't guess, she called Mia over. That was another test. The guaranteed agreement paid in stages. The first payment covered monitoring equipment, insurance, catalog supplies, and part of the remaining building work. It didn't replace all the savings Mia had spent. She kept watching her account carefully. Luke sent invoices on schedule. Mia paid them on schedule. Their written arrangement made the friendship easier. Neither had to pretend his time was free or her access was automatic. The loading apron continued serving both buildings. Furniture trucks came through on weekdays. Costume carriers used the same route after Mia's operating hours began. Luke's shop didn't disappear into the warehouse project. He restored dining tables, cabinets, and sideboards, while Mia built the collection next door. Some evenings, they ate from paper bags at the repaired work table. Other evenings, Luke went home without explanation because the workday was over. Mia learned not to treat every departure as rejection. When the first group of local adult makers began training, Luke built 3 workstations from salvaged maple tops. Each had a bright task light, shallow drawers, and enough clearance for garment supports. Mia taught the makers how to read condition cards, remove old thread without cutting sound fabric, and keep detached buttons with the correct inventory number. Tammy taught them how stage alterations differed from everyday clothing repairs. She was good at it. She didn't make herself the owner of the room. When a trainee asked who had preserved the collection, Tammy pointed toward Mia. "My mother kept the building alive," she said. Mia brought the work back. The answer was brief and accurate. The city's final interior inspection came after the electrical system, stairs, fire protection, and ventilation were corrected. The inspector walked every aisle. She checked the exit path, tested the emergency lights, and examined the repaired upper stair. "No blocked routes," she said. "Keep it that way." "We marked permanent rack positions," Mia replied. The inspector compared the interior work to the remaining correction list. She marked each item completed. Mia watched the last line disappear from the open section of the report. "So, the order is closed?" "The correction order is closed, and the warehouse can operate." "For the approved use?" "Yes." The inspector attached the final notice beside the freight door. This one didn't warn people away. It confirmed the building was safe for controlled business occupancy. Mia left the old notices beneath it for 1 more week. She wanted the first makers, contractors, and family members to see the whole record, not as a display of hardship, but as proof that safe access had been earned 1 correction at a time. Then she filed the notices with the building records. The first rental was a complete evening ensemble from a protected center row. Brian came in person. Mia and 1 trained maker laid the coat, waistcoat, trousers, shirt front, tie, gloves, and hat on separate padded supports. Each piece matched the inventory book. Brian checked the condition cards and signed the rental sheet. "What production?" Tammy asked. "A Nashville stage production set just after the turn of the century," Brian said. "Alterations?" "Temporary only, no cutting." Mia added that restriction to the agreement. The ensemble left in a climate-safe carrier and returned 12 days later. Every piece came back. Mia and Kelsey were together when the carrier arrived. Kelsey stood near the work table while Mia checked the coat lining, cuffs, buttons, and inventory tag. "Anything wrong?" Kelsey asked. "1 loose thread at the inner seam." "Is that bad?" "It's normal use. We repair it before the next booking." Kelsey looked relieved, though nothing in the rental belonged to her. Mia handed her a clean pencil. "Write the return date." Kelsey did. The collection had earned its first operating payment by leaving safely and coming home complete. Work on the upper room began after the rental floor was stable. Dawn's plan had called it a fitting and repair room. Mia kept that function along the front half, where tall windows faced Depot Road. The rear section became a small apartment. The conversion took permits, money, and another round of inspections. Luke repaired the floorboards instead of covering them. Mia chose a compact kitchen, a shower, built-in shelves, and a bedroom wall that stopped short of hiding the old roof beams. Dawn's coffee cup went into the kitchen cabinet without a note beneath it. On moving day, Kelsey arrived at the time Mia gave her. She brought boxes, clean towels, and the green canvas grocery bag from Dawn's hospital room. "I found this behind the laundry shelf," she said. Mia opened it. A comb remained in the bottom. So did one peppermint candy and Dawn's small notebook. The electric bill was gone. Mia turned to the page she remembered. Call roofman. Check south gutter. Depot tax due. Below those lines, Dawn had written another reminder Mia hadn't noticed in the hospital. Tell Mia when ready. Mia held the notebook for a long moment. It didn't explain why Dawn had waited. It didn't turn silence into kindness. It only confirmed that Mia had been part of Dawn's intention before the will was read. Kelsey saw the line. "She should have told you," she said. "Yes." "She should have told all of us more." "Yes." Kelsey carried the next box upstairs. She didn't ask Mia to make Dawn's secrecy beautiful. By winter, the workroom held regular repair sessions twice a week. Adult makers sat beneath task lamps while costumes rested on padded tables. Brian's company sent bookings steadily, never more than Mia's team could handle. Tammy continued coming on Thursdays. Some weeks she helped, some weeks she drank coffee and talked too much about the theater. Kelsey came less often, but she called first. Her refinance closed without interference from Mia. She used part of it to handle her debts and repaired Dawn's rose beds in spring. She didn't offer Mia a room in the house. Mia didn't need one. The sisters remained careful with each other. Careful was not the same as cold. It meant a request could be answered honestly. It meant no one arrived with papers already decided. When Mia said no, Kelsey learned to let the answer remain no. When Kelsey needed help moving Dawn's dining table for floor repairs, she asked a week ahead. Mia said yes. Afterward, Kelsey drove to Depot Road and helped Mia label storage boxes until closing time. Neither sister called the exchange equal. They simply did what they had agreed to do. The warehouse became known by its proper name again. The faded theater stencil remained on the outer wall, protected but not repainted. Beneath it, Mia installed a smaller sign, Fuller Costume Library and Repair Studio. On operating nights, garment carriers crossed the same apron where theater workers had once rolled racks. Luke's furniture deliveries still passed beside them. The drain stayed clear. The roof carried rain toward the repaired downspouts. Air moved through the copper screens and carried the clean cedar smell into the evening. If stories about young people rebuilding a life after family betrayal matter to you, subscribe and return for the next inheritance story. One Thursday, Tammy left after matching the final unlisted hat to a production photograph. Kelsey returned a borrowed garment steamer, signed it back in, and went home before dark. Luke closed his shop at 7. He checked the south gutter on his way out, then tapped twice on the open freight door. "Dry," he called. "Good night," Mia answered. The makers put away their needles, covered the last gown, and switched off the task lights. Mia locked the modern security system after them. She carried Dawn's coffee cup upstairs and set it beside the sink. Through the open railing, she could see the long aisles below. Clean covers rested over cedar racks. Small green cards marked the ensembles ready for work. A booking sheet waited for morning. Luke's signed access agreement hung beside the delivery calendar. The red purchase book rested inside its fitted case. Mia checked the downstairs lights, then crossed the repaired floorboards of the room Dawn had prepared for work, and Mia had made into a home. Mia switched off the workroom lamps upstairs, while warm light remained over the restored costume racks below.